Chapter 899, Dark Clouds in Profound Sky following after Xianxia's arrival. The Yun household was several times more lively than before, and the atmosphere of the entire Demon Imperial City had undergone a large change as well. Due to Yun Qinghong's trust towards Xianxia, he sent a sound transmission to the various great families and duke palaces, instructing them to temporarily stop their preparations for war. However, the shadow which Xunyuan Wenchen brought to Demon Imperial City was too heavy, and the tense and grayish atmosphere enveloping Demon Imperial City did not weaken because of this. Without even needing to think, on the other side, the profound sky continent was definitely enveloped within Xunyuan Wenchen's shadow as well. Xia Yuanba, who was seen by Xunyuan Wenchen as a potential threat that had to be eliminated, the Blue Wind Empire which Kang Yue was concerned about, and the Divine Phoenix sect which Zuer was concerned about, all of their situations were unknown. On the third day he returned, Su Hengshan finally woke up, and Su Linger began to wholeheartedly accompany Yun Gu in the studies of the way of medicine. On the fourth day, Yun Qi had decided to head to the profound sky continent alone. If he were to delay eliminating Xunyuan Wenchen, who could predict what kind of terrifying thing he would do next. Yun Qi, are you truly confident of defeating Xunyuan Wenchen now? The little demon empress worriedly asked. In the past few days, Yun Qi had given everyone a brief description of his experiences in the Azure Cloud continent. Although Yun Qi's profound strength had risen explosively, the combined strength of him, the little demon empress, and Feng Zuer could not even defeat Xunyuan the last time they faced him. Presently, merely a short single month had passed. Could the present Yun Qi truly step directly across the previous immense difference in strength? Though I am not 100% confident and am unable to predict just how much improvement Xunyuan Wenchen has made in this 1 month, at the very least, I can probe him. Even if I end up defeated, I can still safely escape. Though Yun Qi put it this way, his eyes were clearly exuding prideful confidence. Big brother Yun, let me accompany you. I have been worried about how Royal Father and the rest are doing, Feng Zuer gently said. Don't worry, Yun Qi consoled. Last time, Xunyuan Wenchen was injured heavily, so he wouldn't be able to heal completely without half a month or so. Furthermore, after the previous time, he will definitely become more impatient in unleashing the power within his devil blood, so he wouldn't have the thoughts and time to care about other matters. If you insist on going, then bring Zuer along as well, the little demon empress said with a cold look. Adding Zuer's strength, your chances will increase as well. With someone by your side, you will at least know how to cherish your own life. Yun Qi. Yun Qi's gaze looked towards the far north. That was the direction of the profound sky continent. Unknowingly, it had already been several months since he left there. Right now, it was finally time to return. Xunyuan Wenchen, all the debts, it is also time to end them all. Profound sky continent, Divine Phoenix Empire, Phoenix City. The Phoenix City, which was destroyed by Jasmine a few months ago, still carried the same tattered look, and from the looks of it, only simple repairs had been done on the exterior. The Phoenix City, which was usually filled with a searing hot atmosphere, was presently cast with lifelessness. Looking from the sky above, it was even near impossible to see any moving figures. How can this be? Where did all the people of Phoenix City go? Because Feng Zuer was worried about the situation of Divine Phoenix sect, the coordinates which Yun Qi and Zuer jumped to were exactly the sky above Phoenix City. However, what they saw was utter desolateness. Don't be anxious. Compared to a few months ago, there isn't a large increase in traces of destruction in Phoenix City. Maybe, let's first head down to ask around. Yun Qi pulled Feng Zuer's small hand, which was tightly clenched due to anxiety, and brought her straight down, landing in front of the elderly man who had the strongest profound aura remaining in Phoenix City. That elderly man seemed to be in a daze because of some matters, and he quickly took a few steps back out of shock due to Yun Qi's and Zuer's sudden appearance. The moment he saw Feng Zuer, he shockingly widened his old eyes. Princess Snow, it's really you. I'm not dreaming, right? Then he suddenly saw Yun Qi next to Feng Zuer, and his pair of eyes had almost popped out of their eye sockets. You, the people of the profound sky continent, had all believed that Yun Qi was already dead. 33rd Elder, it's me. Where's Royal Father? Quickly tell me where have Royal Father and the rest gone to? Feng Zuer anxiously asked, and her body lightly shrank from fear, afraid of hearing the answer which she was terrified to think about. Sect Master, he, 33rd Elder took a deep breath. He, along with Grand Sect Master and the rest, have gone to Supreme Ocean Palace. Feng Zuer's body instantly softened. Her entire body leaned against Yun Qi's chest as she finally heaved a long sigh of relief between her lips. Yun Qi really wanted to step up and send 33 ruthless slaps to this 33rd elder. If they have gone to Supreme Ocean Palace, then say they have gone to the Supreme Ocean Palace. It's not like they have gone down to the netherworld. Why the hell did he take in such a big breath for? Look at how you frighten my Zuer. Supreme Ocean Palace? Yun Qi's brows twitched. Why did they go there? The 33rd elder was still a little shocked when facing the resurrected Yun Qi, and he only replied a few moments later. It's the Heavenly Sovereign Conference, Xuanyuan Wenqin's Heavenly Sovereign Conference. Xuanyuan Wenqin will be conferring himself as the profound Sky Supreme Lord in the Heavenly Sovereign Conference. All of those who do not accept the invitations will be seen as going against the Heavenly Sovereign and have their sects and families massacred. Heavenly Sovereign Conference, conferring himself as a Heavenly Sovereign. That sure is a great show of arrogance. Yun Qi coldly laughed and said, When will this Heavenly Sovereign Conference begin? It's today. Sect Master and the rest have already gone there several days ago. This 33rd elder had still yet to completely regain his senses. Today, Royal Father, Grandfather, Great-Grandfather, and the rest, are they all right? Feng Zuer still asked with slight worry. During the time I wasn't here, did Xuanyuan Wenqin come here? No. However, the people of mighty Heavenly Sword region have visited several times, and every single time, they would bring back a large amount of profound crystals, medicine, and pellets. We have no choice but to comply with them. Fear emitted out of the 33rd elder's eyes. Somehow, that Xuanyuan Wenqin had basically become even more terrifying than the ghost god of legends. I heard that previously, when the other 3 sacred masters who held the same status as him combined their strengths, they were still miserably defeated by him alone. Even his personality, according to rumors, has become exceptionally cruel and violent. Anyone or any sect that had the slightest thoughts of not submitting to him was massacred by mighty Heavenly Sword region. Even several people belonging to Absolute Monarch Sanctuary, Supreme Ocean Palace, and Sun Moon Divine Hall have died at Xuanyuan Wenqin's hands. I'm afraid that it's not much longer until the 3 sacred grounds will have no choice but to shrink back and submit under Xuanyuan Wenqin as well. From today on, there will no longer be 4 sacred masters in the profound Sky Continent. After Xuanyuan Wenqin becomes the Heavenly Sovereign, it will be hard to predict just what will happen to the profound Sky Continent, and it will be hard to predict just what will happen to our Divine Phoenix sect as well. The 4 great sacred grounds had initially coexisted while mutually restraining each other. It was hard for one to dominate over the other, and no one dared to act too recklessly. Now that Xuanyuan Wenqin has turned into a devil god, far surpassing the other 3 sacred masters, the balance being broken was just a secondary matter. Xuanyuan Wenqin's personality was becoming even more twisted under the influence of the dark, profound energy, turning even more violent and brutal. To the profound Sky Continent, his power was an incomparably terrifying disaster, and it was becoming even more terrifying with each passing day. Zuer, we're going to Supreme Ocean Palace. Yun Qi pulled on Feng Zuer and instantly disappeared within the dimensional rift, leaving behind a completely stunned Phoenix Elder. The primordial profound arc once again leapt, instantly arriving above the ocean region of Supreme Ocean Palace from Phoenix City. Directly south from their lines of sight, they could see a floating island enveloped by a shallow blue glow at first glance. However, compared to when Yun Qi first visited Supreme Ocean Palace, the blue light surrounding the floating island evidently showed slight hints of chaos. Beneath their feet was a small circular island, and a spatial profound formation was flashing at the center of the small island. Yun Qi recalled that this island was named Ocean Eye Isle, and when he first visited Supreme Ocean Palace, he was first sent to this small island, before flying towards the floating island on his own. It's Supreme Ocean Palace, Feng Zuer lightly muttered, as she looked at it with startled eyes. It was unclear if she was worried about Feng Henkang and the rest, or if she had recalled the scene when they first came here. It has been less than a year, and I never expected that I would actually come back here again, Yun Qi said. The first time he met Xuanyuan Wenqin was in Supreme Ocean Palace as well. Xuanyuan Wenqin is indeed a terrifying figure. Ambition, talent, schemes, ruthlessness, patience, and opportunities. He should have possessed all the things he needed by now. However, unfortunately, on his very last step, he turned into a madman who has lost both his body and mind. Yun Qi seemed to be muttering to himself. The Heavenly Sovereign Conference today was the moment where he would enjoy his fruits of labor to the fullest. "Big Brother Yun, are we going head over directly?" Feng Zuer asked. Yun Qi pondered for a moment and said, "Let's still conceal our presence and approach carefully. Let's first investigate the situation in the Ocean Palace. Zuer, let's head up." Just as Yun Qi and Feng Zuer were about to rise into the air, the spatial profound formation on the ocean isle beneath them suddenly flashed with white light, and two figures walked out one after the other. Ha. The white-robed youth walking at the front suddenly raised his head and laughed out loud the moment he stepped out of the profound formation. "Look at this broad ocean region. This young master has finally understood why Father has chosen this place. With the vastness of this blue ocean, there's truly nowhere one could escape to." "Ho ho!" The elderly following behind the youth laughed as well. "But with Lord Sword Master's present divine might, if he doesn't wish for anyone to flee, who can truly escape from the hands of Lord Sword Master?" Yun Qi's and Feng Zuer's figures stopped at the same time, as their gazes landed at the two people below them. The youth had the profound strength of a late-stage overlord, while the elderly was a level 7 monarch. Their two bodies were surging with sword aura. "Xuanyuan Wendao?" Yun Qi recited in a low tone, his eyes instantly darkened. The male youth walking at the front was actually Xuanyuan Wenshan's son, his only son, Xuanyuan Wendao. Though the former Xuanyuan Wendao carried a lofty look, he had basically stayed passive-aggressive. While in the presence of other people, he was still considered to be cautious, and would occasionally display a meek side as well. However, the present Xuanyuan Wendao was suffused with arrogance and majesty. His eyes, his tone, not one of them was not madly arrogant in the least. He was basically like an emperor who was pointing at his country and dominating over the world. Not a single thing in the world could enter his eyes. And this change naturally came from Xuanyuan Wenshan's world-enveloping might. HMPH, that's natural. However, there are still several disobedient people. These laughable idiots are still daydreaming about resisting Father. Today, Father will let them know what true power is. Those disobedient idiots will know what despair is, and their blood will most likely dye this blue ocean palace in fresh red. Lord Sword Master? Oh, that's not it. How could mere mortals possibly go against the might of the Heavenly Sovereign? Once Lord Sword Master truly becomes the first Heavenly Sovereign of the profound Sky Continent today, then young Master will become the first young Sovereign Master of the profound Sky Continent. In the future, this entire world will belong to young Sovereign Master as well, the elderly flattered with a face filled with smiles. Ha. Xuanyuan Wendao laughed out arrogantly. Not just the profound Sky Continent. Once the Heavenly Sovereign Conference is completed, and once those disobedient people have found out the consequences, Father will immediately rebuild the profound formation and head over to the illusory demon realm. Once that time comes, the illusory demon realm will kneel down and submit or be destroyed. Heh. The beautiful dream you father and son share is truly a heartfelt one. Amidst Xuanyuan Wenshan's wild laughter, an ice-cold voice that carried deep ridicule suddenly rang in his ears, causing the hair in his entire body to instantly stand on ends. "Who is it?" Boom. Amidst the sudden explosive loud noise, the elderly man who was following behind Xuanyuan Wendao, a powerful level 7 monarch, was sent flying away like a tattered cabbage without being able to let out a single scream in time, landing in the ocean several kilometers away. As for Xuanyuan Wendao, who turned around, he finally saw the faces of Yun Qi and Feng Zuer clearly. His eyes instantly widened out of fear. You too, erg." Before Xuanyuan Wendao could roar out in time, Yun Qi's hand had already locked tightly onto his neck, preventing him from making a sound. Even the slightest groan could not be heard. "Young Master Xuanyuan, it has truly been a long time." Yun Qi coldly smiled as he raised Xuanyuan Wendao up. "I was just contemplating what welcome gift I should bring for Xuanyuan Wenshan, when you just happened to obediently send yourself to my doorstep." Chapter 900, Heavenly Sovereign Conference. "Don't show such a terrified expression. I didn't say I am going to kill you," Yun Qi said with a grin. "If I were to let you die so easily." Yun Qi's eyes instantly turned cold, and his voice sounded like a bone-piercing sharp blade, piercing into Xuanyuan Wendao's soul. "How will I be able to face Uncle Zio up in the heavens?" Crack. Bang. Yun Qi gripped his right hand, and a large bone in Xuanyuan Wendao's throat was instantly shattered, while his left hand had also fiercely smashed onto his chest. With a dull sound, Xuanyuan Wendao's body severely shook as an insidious, profound energy heartlessly infiltrated his profound veins. In the blink of an eye, his profound veins were completely destroyed, with all the profound energy stored within completely annihilated. Not a single strand of it escaped. Ever since he grasped darkness' profound energy, he had gotten more efficient with his ability to cripple one's profound veins. Furthermore, the several people he had crippled recently all had both their profound strength and profound veins crippled, preventing them from even cultivating all the way from the beginning again. Most probably, these actions more or less carried his resentment of having crippled profound veins back then. The fear in Xuanyuan Wendao's eyes turned into deep despair the moment his profound veins were crippled. Just a moment before, he was still having a far-off dream of becoming the lord of the world. However, in just a few breaths of time, this beautiful dream that had yet to be fulfilled had completely turned into a nightmare. Yuan Qi's grip loosened, and Xuanyuan Wendao fell limply to the ground like a dead dog. Not killing him was not because Yuan Qi wanted to use him to threaten Xuanyuan Wenchen, nor was there such a need. He was the person who killed Xiao Ying back then, and also the main culprit who caused the tragedy in the Xiao family. His life should be judged by the Xiao family. After kicking Xuanyuan Wendao into the primordial profound arc, Yuan Qi, along with Feng Zuer, rose into the air, continuing to soar until they were 3 kilometers higher than Supreme Ocean Palace before heading southward. The ocean region of the Southern Ocean was not calm today. Waves were rising all around on the ocean's surface, and a large part of the sky was covered by thick clouds. Yuan Qi and Feng Zuer quickly arrived above the ocean palace, and as Yuan Qi had expected, that thick and chaotic profound energy came from the center of the sea god arena of the ocean palace. Just like the Devil Sword Conference back then, Xuanyuan Wenchen decided to choose the same location to host the Heavenly Sovereign Conference this time. Yuan Qi and Feng Zuer shortened their distance from the sea god arena to 10 kilometers before finally stopping. The two of them hid themselves above the layers of clouds. Though they were separated by 10 kilometers with their eyesight, it was enough to clearly see the scenes occurring in the sea god arena. Let's settle down here then. If we approach any further, it will be easy for Xuanyuan Wenchen to notice. While Yuan Qi said that, his arm wrapped around Feng Zuer's gentle waist as he activated hidden flowing lightning, quickly concealing their auras. "It's Royal Father and the others," Feng Zuer lightly called out in excitement, her eyes landing on the southern side of the sea god arena. Over there, she saw Feng Zhuqi, Feng Tianwei, and Feng Hengkang's figure, and behind them was almost the entire lineup of elder-level figures of Divine Phoenix sect. However, Feng Ziming was not among them. Seeing that they were safe and sound with her own eyes, Feng Zuer's heart, which had been hanging in suspense, finally calmed down. Yuan Qi swept his eyes quickly around the sea god arena. The Devil's Sword Conference back, then gathered almost all the top-notch experts in the profound sky continent, and could be said to be the biggest event in the history of the profound sky continent. However, the scale of this so-called Heavenly Sovereign Conference had actually even surpassed the Devil's Sword Conference. The large half of the sea god arena, which was left empty back then, was already filled to the brim when the Heavenly Sovereign Conference had even yet to begin. The sects which were invited to the Devil's Sword Conference were basically all present. On the other hand, those which did not participate in the Devil's Sword Conference, but were all prominent powers in their own respective regions, made up a larger number. Other than the forces in the profound realm, Yuan Qi had clearly spotted the powers belonging to the royal families of various nations, along with various large economic powers. The royal family powers representing the 7 nations of the profound sky continent were all present, and this included Blue Wind Empire, which was made up of several dozen people led by Dongfang Ziu and Qin Wusheng. 30 or so merchant guilds were present, and every single one of them was well known in the continent. Very evidently, for this so-called Heavenly Sovereign Conference, not only did Xuanyuan Wenchen want to confer on himself the title of Heavenly Sovereign in the profound way, he clearly wanted to become the Heavenly Sovereign of the entire continent. The atmosphere of this Heavenly Sovereign Conference was also worlds apart from the Devil's Sword Conference. Back then, no one had realized that he or she would actually be reduced to mere tools for Xuanyuan Wenchen to release the seal on the Devil's Sword, and they attended the conference in order to participate and watch. Back then, though they were tense, at the same time they were excited and filled with expectations. This time, however, the entire sea god arena felt like it had been covered in a large cauldron, enveloped by a layer of incomparably heavy atmosphere. The powers, royal families, and merchant guilds from the 7 nations were all neatly and tensely seated with fearful expressions, not even daring to take in a huge breath. The 4 great sacred grounds, Absolute Monarch Sanctuary, Supreme Ocean Palace, Sun Moon Divine Hall, and Mighty Heavenly Sword region were already present. Huanji Wuyu, Fengyi, and Yi Meixi were all seated in front of their respective sacred grounds. Though all of them carried different expressions, they no longer possessed the pride and might they once had, as every single one of their auras was filled with different degrees of haziness. Yi Meixi was missing an arm, becoming a single-armed heavenly monarch. Though Huanji Wuyu and Fengyi did not look different on the surface, from their auras, Yunqi immediately sensed that the 2 of them had clearly suffered considerably heavy injuries. Furthermore, their injuries were inflicted not too long ago. Yi Meixi's arm had been crippled by the little demon empress, and there was only a single person in the profound sky continent who could injure Huanji Wuyu and Fengyi. As for the people from Mighty Heavenly Sword region, they were not seated in the seats at the sides of the sea god arena. Instead, they were separated into several square formations, and all of them were standing in the central region of the sea god arena. Back then, the 3 sword attendants and a bunch of elders of Mighty Heavenly Sword region were killed by Jasmine, as if she was cutting vegetables, and their most important northern region was even destroyed. Their overall strength could be considered to have plummeted, and it could be said that they had even fallen off the level of a sacred ground. However, the Mighty Heavenly Sword region today, from the elders at the top to the regular disciples at the bottom, every single one of them carried proud expressions with their heads held high. Putting aside the powers from the 7 nations, even when they were looking at the other 3 sacred grounds, their gazes evidently carried belittling glints. It was as if they had stepped onto another level of this world where all the other existences, including the other 3 sacred grounds which held the same status as them, were reduced to mere servants. HMPH, this scene sure is spectacular, Yunqi said with a low voice. Putting aside Xueyu and Wenqin's personality being influenced by the darkness' profound energy, even the entire Mighty Heavenly Sword region could not wait to expose the ugliest side of human nature. The looks of Father and the rest are really scary, Feng Zuer worriedly said. Big brother Yun, what should we do later? Killing Xuanyu and Wenqin was their goal in being here, but they had not actually expected to encounter such a huge spectacle. Xuanyu and Wenqin isn't here yet. I do want to see what kind of performance he has prepared. Amen. At the seats in the southeastern corner, Yunqi suddenly saw some familiar faces. Ling Yuefeng, Xuanyu and Yufeng, Ling Yun, Heavenly Sword Villa. Why were they here? Though Heavenly Sword Villa had immense fame in the Blue Wind Empire, they were still not worthy of being invited here. However, immediately after, Yunqi saw Xuanyu and Ju, who was seated at the very front, and instantly let out a cold laugh. This truly demonstrates what is meant by when a man attains the way, his hen and dog ascend to the heavens as well. And what made Yunqi feel at ease was, among the seats taken up Heavenly Sword Villa, he did not see Lingjai's figure. He's here, Yunqi suddenly said. Boom! The moment Yunqi's voice fell, dull thunder suddenly resounded from the east, and following after, the sky in the east gradually darkened. The thick clouds that were initially bluish-white were quickly dyed in black, and even the entire space had begun to dim. The atmosphere that was suppressive in the first place instantly turned even heavier, as every single person present felt as if their chest was being pressed down by 15 tons of profound metal. The looks on everyone in the sea god arena, including the 3 great sacred masters and the many elders of the sacred grounds, changed one after the other. Because even at the level of strength they possessed, they could still clearly sense a terrifying pressure that could shake their souls. This pressure was completely different from the regular suppression with the use of profound auras. It was as if there was a dark, colossal devil standing above their heads with its pitch-black mouth wide open, and it could swallow them into the abyss of death at any moment. Saint Emperor, has Xuanyu and Wenqin truly become as powerful as you have described? Behind Huanji Wuyu, spiritual master Bitter Agony, the leader of the 12 spiritual masters, said with a low voice. Even before Xuanyu and Wenqin had made his appearance, this pressure coming from the far distance was already able to stir his heart. HSS, Huanji Wuyu slightly gritted his teeth. What's going on? Xuanyu and Wenqin's aura has actually grown so much stronger than before. Just what is going on with his strength? What? Spiritual Master Bitter Agony's entire body shook. Sovereign of the Seas, The face of Zai Jai, who was standing next to the sovereign of the seas, Qfengyi, had completely lost its calm as well. Just as he was about to speak, Qfengyi hurriedly raised her hand, stopping him from continuing. Her expression, which was sunken in the first place, had turned even darker than before. "Xuanyuan Wenchen!" Feng Zua reached out her hand to cover her lips as endless shock filled her eyes. His aura has truly gotten even more terrifying than last time, and his strength did not just increase by a little. Yun Qi's brows sank as he slightly clenched his fists. This monster, which was the fusion of the powers of three people, Yi Mufeng from 1,000 years ago, Fen Juchen, who had experienced a strange rebirth, and Xuanyuan Wenchen, was truly terrifying to the extreme. He was already a monster that could not be explained or understood with common sense. With Xuanyuan Wenchen's present condition, even if Yun Qi did not take the initiative to look for him, he would have soon broken into the illusory demon realm anyway. Black clouds were moving amidst the dull thunder, all the way to the skies right above the sea god arena. Then, with a loud explosive sound, a pitch-black figure, carrying a dark aura that could suffocate people, descended upon the sea god arena from the sky. "We welcome the Heavenly Sovereign." The people of mighty Heavenly Sword region, who had waited in formation at the center of the sea god arena, knelt down together and shouted out in unison. When mighty Heavenly Sword region, a force which clearly had their powers weakened by a great extent, shouted the words, "We welcome the Heavenly Sovereign," it was actually several times louder and more resounding compared to the time they shouted, "We welcome the Sword Master," during the Devil Sword Conference. Xuanyuan Wenchen slowly descended and stopped right before touching the ground as he stood at the very center of the sea god arena. Dressed entirely in black with large sleeves, his black hair extended to his waist. His face carried a grayish color, and his eyes were covered with an occasional black glow. He raised his head and swept his eyes towards the front. The corners of his lips stretched into a slight smile, however. It was not the usual relaxed and composed smile, but an indescribable low smile that made people feel extremely uncomfortable. The smile of a devil. Xuanyuan Wenchen's arrival had caused the temperature of the sea god arena, which was enveloped in an incomparably oppressive atmosphere, to suddenly fall. The various forces of the 7 nations tremblingly stood up in a hurried manner. However, all of their heads were lowered, not daring to even glance at this terrifying devil god. If Xuanyuan Wenchen was merely logic-defyingly powerful, the masses would not be terrified to such an extent. After all, to them, the past Xuanyuan Wenchen was similarly a godlike existence who was standing at a height they could not possibly reach. However, in just a short few months, nearly 100 sects had already been annihilated under the hands of mighty Heavenly Sword region, and among them, some were even personally dealt with by Xuanyuan Wenchen himself. According to rumors, several thousand experts belonging to the 3 great sacred grounds were even massacred by Xuanyuan Wenchen one after another. And in the end, the other 3 sacred grounds could only endure this humiliation and suppress their indignation. The current Xuanyuan Wenchen not only possessed unmatched strength, he even held the highest authority of determining the lives and deaths in the profound sky continent. If he wanted someone to die, that person definitely would not be able to see the sun on the 2nd day. In the past, the other 3 sacred grounds could restrain mighty Heavenly Sword region, but in the current profound sky continent, there was no longer any power that could restrain Xuanyuan Wenchen. Chapter 901, conferring himself the title of Heavenly Sovereign, Fen Juchen. At the corner of the seats, Dongfeng Ziu and Qin Wusheng, who came as representatives for the Blue Wind royal family, lost control of their voices and shouted. It was their first time in a land governed by the strongest like Supreme Ocean Palace, and it was their first time meeting this many peerless experts as well. They, who could be considered experts standing at the apex in the Blue Wind Empire, were as frail as ants here, however. They had no choice but to come, because all who turned down the invitation would be killed without question. For the safety of the Blue Wind Empire, they had no choice but to bite the bullet. When they finally met the person who was recently rumored to be a terrifying devil god, the face they saw actually belonged to someone they were familiar with. A few of the profound practitioners of the 7 nations who had seen Xuanyuan Wenchen in the Devil Sword Conference back then were all looking at each other as well, dumbfounded. Just what is going on? The Sword Master's face and his body, why? Ling Yuefeng exclaimed. HMPH, what's with the huge fuss? Xuanyuan Ju shifted his eyes to the back and said with a cold tone. The Heavenly Sovereign has obtained unparalleled divine power, so his entire being will naturally be reborn as well. What's so strange about it? Also, the present Heavenly Sovereign is no longer the Sword Master but the profound Sky Supreme Lord. Yes, Ling Yuefeng hurriedly responded, and no longer dared to utter a single word. Where's Wendao? Xunyuan Wenchen lightly swept the surroundings with his eyes and did not see Xunyuan Wendao's figure. Replying to Heavenly Sovereign, the elder standing at the very front of the line of Sword Region elders stepped out, and with an arched body he said, Young Master was initially traveling with me, but when he heard some rumors that a weapon-refining sect in Southbright possessed an interesting sword, in the heat of the moment, Young Master made a detour to retrieve it, which is why there will be a slight delay in his arrival. However, with such a huge event taking place, Young Master will definitely not dally for too long. In addition, Elder Jitting is by the Young Master's side, so his safety will definitely be assured. HMPH, this sovereign is not worried about his safety, Xunyuan Wenchen lightly snorted. The kid has been lacking in progress recently and only knows how to show off his prowess. Never mind, there's no need to pay him any mind. Boom. When Xunyuan Wenchen's voice fell, a thin layer of black aura surrounding his body suddenly exploded forth. In an instant, the people present could feel a sinister energy colliding with their bodies and the depths of their souls, causing their bodies to turn cold and their vision to darken. A large half of the people who were standing were instantly paralyzed and had fallen back to their seats, their bodies trembling. Hey, 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 hey! Xunyuan Wenchen let out a long, sullen laugh. It seems like those who should be here have more or less arrived. Then we can officially begin as well. Eyes that were filled with clarity, darkness, or fear gathered on Xunyuan Wenchen one after another. In the enormous Sea God arena, filled with several 100,000 people with extraordinary profound strength or authority, not even a single person was making a sound, and even breathing sounds could hardly be heard. This was not any ordinary meeting, but an important juncture concerning the future of all the people present here, as well as the entire profound Sky continent. The reason why this sovereign has gathered everyone here this time is because there's an important matter to be announced. Xunyuan Wenchen spread open his arms. From this day onwards, this sovereign will be the one and only heavenly sovereign of this world. This sovereign truly has to congratulate everyone present. All of you are personally witnessing the birth of the very first heavenly sovereign in the history of the profound Sky continent. This shall become the honor of your lifetimes. Heavenly Sovereign Xunyuan, vast heavenly might. The surrounding people of mighty heavenly sword region once again knelt down, their roars shaking the sky and earth. However, other than the people of mighty heavenly sword region, not a single other person had let out a sound, and there were even several people with expressions cast with gloom. This was especially so among the people of Absolute Monarch Sanctuary and Supreme Ocean Palace, with most of their faces looking extremely ugly. Hey, hey! Xunyuan Wenchen raised his hand, allowing the people of mighty heavenly sword region to stand up, and then lightly said, In regards to the title of Heavenly Sovereign being conferred on this sovereign, does anyone have any doubts or objections? If anyone does, please feel free to raise them. This sovereign will definitely personally convince all of you. Xunyuan Wenchen's words were very plain, but everyone could hear the ghastliness within them. This old one has a doubt? A sluggish voice suddenly sounded from the right of Xunyuan Wenchen. Though it was sluggish, everyone still instantly raised their heads as if they had been startled by thunder, looking towards the source of the voice. Xunyuan Wenchen's gaze skewed as he said with a grin, Isn't this spiritual master ancient wood of the sanctuary? I wonder what doubt do you have? Amidst the absolute monarch sanctuary, a white-haired elderly man stepped out, arriving next to Huangji Wuyu. With a pair of clear eyes, he looked at Xunyuan Wenchen without the slightest hint of fear. In the sanctuary, he took up the name of Ancient Wood, and was ranked as one of the 12 spiritual masters of the sanctuary. This old one wishes to ask Sword Master Xunyuan, what is a heavenly sovereign? Good question. Xunyuan Wenchen instantly took over and pridefully said, The heavenly sovereign is the supreme lord of this world, the lord of all beings. Everything in the world is in this sovereign's grasp. The will of the heavenly sovereign is the will of the heavens. Life to those who submit and death to those who oppose. The words of this sovereign are destiny itself. Those who obey shall live, and those who betray shall die. Hearing Xunyuan Wenchen's arrogant speech, the initially ugly expressions of the crowd had turned even uglier. This was definitely the most arrogant and presumptuous speech they had ever heard in their lifetimes. The eyes of spiritual master Ancient Wood sank as he kept his cool and continued, "Then what are we to the heavenly sovereign?" Xianxia Wenchen placed his two hands behind his back. With his eyes on spiritual master Ancient Wood, he sullenly and slowly said, "Slaves, of course. Those who are obedient shall live, and those who are disobedient shall die." "You!" Spiritual master Ancient Wood's eyes shrank. All the faces of everyone in the Sea God arena quickly changed as well. No matter if it was the emperor of a nation or the lord of a region. At the moment of being a ruler, the first thing he or she would do was always to appease, stabilize, and capture the hearts of the people. Even if the four great sacred grounds had previously dominated the profound sky continent for 10,000 years, what was spread to the masses were their depictions of their titles as guardians and sacred grounds. This was naturally so they could capture the hearts of the common people. However, on the very first day, Xianxia Wenchen conferred the title of Heavenly Sovereign on himself. He declared all the people under him were slaves. It was not that he had gone completely insane. The rebellious hearts of the people were indeed capable of toppling over authority. However, with Xianxia Wenchen's strength, he basically no longer needed to fear rebellions from the common people. Furthermore, he even wished that even more people would rebel and even more people would try resisting. That way, he could then enjoy even more wantonly the pleasure of stepping on others and massacring them. He would be able to enjoy even more refreshingly their expressions filled with fear and despair. Is spiritual master Ancient Wood satisfied with this sovereign's answer? Xianxia Wenchen slowly narrowed his eyes. "Stand down, do not speak any further," Huangji Wuyu said with a low voice. Spiritual master Ancient Wood's chest heaved. He had basically turned furious beyond return as he instead took a step forward, roaring out loud. "If our profound sky continent has someone with sufficient ability to convince everyone and become the Lord in the profound way, it would not exactly be a bad issue. However, you, Xianxia Wenchen, the reason you are conferring the title of this so-called heavenly sovereign on yourself is all in order to enslave the common people. You have been acting out your wishes without restraint these past several months. In order to plunder profound crystals, you massacred hundreds of sects of various sizes and have even killed 11 elders and more than 900 disciples from our sanctuary. Though you have always been a disgusting being, at the very least, you still knew how to conceal and restrain yourself in the past. Now, you're basically a monstrous devil devoid of human nature and have long degraded your title of Lord of a sacred ground. Do you truly believe that everyone in the world will submit to you out of a fear? Do you truly think that no one will bestow judgment upon you? Erg. Spiritual master Ancient Wood's furious admonishment abruptly stopped. With a frozen expression, his entire body fell straight backwards, and on his chest, a round, pitch-black hole could be seen. "Ancient Wood! Spiritual master Ancient Wood!" Huangji Wuyu hurriedly charged forward, holding on to the fallen spiritual master Ancient Wood. While spiritual master Ancient Wood was admonishing Xianxia Wenchen, he had already sensed that things were turning sour, because the present Xianxia Wenchen was basically no longer the Xianxia Wenchen of half a year ago. He had no choice but to take all possible precautions. However, that ray of black light that pierced spiritual master Ancient Wood was as if it had appeared from a dimensional rift. Though he could sense it, putting aside blocking it, he was basically unable to react even in the slightest. "Saint Emperor!" Spiritual master Ancient Wood's face was turning darker at an astonishing speed. "Must never, ever." Spiritual master Ancient Wood was only able to utter those last three words before his pair of eyes completely turned black. Following after, within a surging black aura, his skin, muscles, blood, meridians, and bones, all of them disintegrated into black ash and quickly dispersed. He was completely annihilated. Not even the slightest trace of him remained. Everyone had personally witnessed this scene, and every single pair of pupils had shrunk. Chills ran down their spines and sweat poured out of their bodies. An indescribably intense fear surged within their souls. According to rumors, the other three sacred masters still suffered a miserable defeat at Xianxia Wenchen's hands, even after combining their strengths. Though spiritual master Ancient Wood was a powerful level 8 monarch, he could not possibly be Xianxia Wenchen's match. Furthermore, even if Xianxia Wenchen were to smash him to death with a single exchange of blows, no one would be too shocked either. However, there was a distance of several kilometers between Xianxia Wenchen and spiritual master Ancient Wood. Yet he was still actually able to turn a level 8 monarch into ashes and erase his entire corpse. There were still countless sanctuary experts in his surroundings, and even Huangji Wuyu was not even 3 steps away from him. Yet not a single person had made the slightest reaction. On the other hand, Xuanyuan Wenchen had never moved from the beginning to the end, and even his hands were still behind his back. Merely a ray of strange black light had flashed past his body. A scene like this, and a power like this, had already completely surpassed the range of their understanding. This was basically strength that only the ghost god of legends could compare to. This is the consequence of being disobedient in front of this sovereign. Xuanyuan Wenchen revealed a bland smile, as if the one he killed was not a powerful level 8 monarch or a spiritual master of the sanctuary, and he had merely stepped on a bunch of weeds that was blocking the way. Anyone still wish to personally try me out? Heavenly Sovereign, great kill? An elder of Sword region called out loudly. To actually dare disrespect Heavenly Sovereign with his words, he had basically taken on a sin that he could not simply be punished for. Heavenly Sovereign personally dealing with him can already be considered a grace towards him. Xuan, Yuan, Wen, Tian. Huangji Wuyu slowly stood up. His face, which he had kept calm with all his might, had already begun to distort. A small amount of uncontrollable, profound energy was even beginning to rise from his body. Our absolute monarch sanctuary has stood for 10,000 years. Though we do not demonstrate great kindness, we do condemn great evil, and we have basically never let down the title of a sacred ground. How can we possibly associate with a devil like you? Huangji Wuyu's few words, which carried deep anger within, had incomparably expressed his standing, and they had also shaken the spirits of all the profound practitioners who were enveloped in trembling fear. Saint Emperor, the crowd from Absolute Monarch Sanctuary raised their heads as well, as they looked towards Huangji Wuyu. Oh! Xuanyuan Wenchen turned around, the corners of his lips slanted into a sinister, light smile. I, Huangji Wuyu, have lived for more than 2,000 years, and though I admit that I am afraid of death, but nothing irks me more than living while struggling under your hands. My absolute monarch sanctuary cannot be destroyed, but if we have no choice but to live while struggling under the hands of a devil devoid of human nature like you, then I, Huangji Wuyu, will rather personally bury this 10,000-year-old sanctuary. Chapter 902. Those who obey will survive, those who resist will perish. Saint Emperor, that was well said. Spiritual Master Bitter Agony and Spiritual Master Nine Lamentations moved to stand at the left and right of Huangji Wuyu. All of the profound energy around their body was surging, and the determination to see this to the bitter end was clearly reflected in their eyes. Once the Saint Emperor had said his piece, all of the spiritual masters, elders and disciples of Absolute Monarch Sanctuary left their seats to stand behind Huangji Wuyu. Huangji Wuyu's words had completely ignited the flames of dignity and honor within every single one of their hearts without fail. He was absolutely right. As Absolute Monarch Sanctuary, they had proudly lorded over the profound sky continent for 10,000 years, so how could they resign themselves to being someone else's dog? Hey, Huangji Wuyu, it looks like you've steeled yourself to be the first disobedient one here. Xuanyuan Wenchen was not the least bit disappointed or angry. Instead, he gave a bland laugh that was as thick as a devil's. Xuanyuan Wenchen, you want to become the ruler of everything under heaven, and given your current power, I, Huangji Wuyu, have no choice but to concede that position to you. But if you want us to be slaves groveling at your feet, dream on. Huangji Wuyu snarled through gritted teeth. His hands balled into tightly clenched fists as the profound energy in his body circulated restlessly, impatiently waiting to be unleashed. He, Fengyi, and Yi Meixi had all personally experienced the dreadfulness of Xuanyuan Wenchen, so they were more clear than anyone else regarding the level of strength Xuanyuan Wenchen had obtained. So once those words had left his mouth, he did not plan to live past this day, even if his name was Huangji Wuyu. HMPH, I can still respect this Absolute Monarch Sanctuary, but I wonder how Supreme Ocean Palace and Sun Moon Divine Hall will respond. Yun Qi muttered to himself in a low voice while he was hiding behind those clouds. Very good. This is extremely good indeed. You have truly given this sovereign an opportunity to make you a rather satisfactory example, Xuanyuan Wenchen said as he smiled merrily. But after he finished, he suddenly whirled around to look at Sun Moon Divine Hall, which was on the other side. Absolute Monarch Sanctuary has chosen to stand against this sovereign. So Yi Meixi, how about your lot? Oh, don't be in a hurry to reply, Xuanyuan Wenchen said with half-narrowed eyes as he gently pushed his right arm backwards. towards the direction where Absolute Monarch's sanctuary was standing. "Be careful." Huanji Wuyu had been focused on guarding against each and every move made by Xuanyuan Wenchen. So when he saw Xuanyuan Wenchen flip his palm around, he let out a great shout. The empty air ruptured as a pitch-black hand emerged from the rift in space. In the blink of an eye, it stretched out more than 300 meters in length as it abruptly loomed over where Absolute Monarch's sanctuary was standing. Boom! Black light exploded outwards as the sea god arena violently shook. About 1/3 of the 2,000-odd people who represented Absolute Monarch's sanctuary today had been engulfed by that pitch-black devil claw. Amidst miserable cries which shook the skies, 600 Absolute Monarch sanctuary disciples shared the same fate as spiritual master Ancient Wood. They were all turned into jet-black dust in the blink of an eye. 12 elders belonging to Absolute Monarch sanctuary had also been thrown aside by that black light, and after flopping and rolling on the ground for a while, all of them lay there completely lifeless. Even the spiritual masters who wanted to dart forward to save their fellow sect members turned pale the moment they approached that scattered black light. They hurriedly retreated, their faces filled with shock and fear. Xuanyuan Wenchen had simply flipped a single hand, but that had been enough to reduce Absolute Monarch Sanctuary's contingent by 1/3. At this moment, he finally slowly turned back towards them. "Come, let this sovereign see how many people has died this time." "Xuan, Yuan, Wen, Tian." Huanji Wuyu's was completely enraged. He let out a low roar as the robes he was wearing billowed fiercely. His hands were crisscrossed as he rushed directly at Xuanyuan Wenchen, a giant profound formation swiftly spinning in front of him. "Absolute Monarch Star Formation?" Yun Qi, who was observing in the shadows, muttered under his breath. Xia Yuanba had said that the only person in Absolute Monarch Sanctuary who could display this profound formation at its full power was the Saint Emperor himself, Huanji Wuyu. A cold smile appeared on Xuanyuan Wenchen's face as he directly thrust a hand out so that he could grab the Absolute Monarch Star Formation. Intense, golden light immediately clashed against black light, but the Absolute Monarch Star Formation let out a wail as it started to warp violently. Huanji Wuyu's body fiercely trembled as he was instantly sent tumbling away, but he let out a fierce yell as he was spinning through the air. After that, he flipped back to his feet as the Absolute Monarch Star Formation abruptly widened and hurtled through the air to strike at Xuanyuan Wenchen. "Heh, you're way in over your head." After Xuanyuan Wenchen let out that dark chuckle of disdain, the black light on his arm suddenly exploded outwards, instantly piercing the Absolute Monarch Star Formation. At the same instant the Absolute Monarch Star Formation had fractured, it also heavily exploded against Huanji Wuyu's chest. All of the profound energy in Huanji Wuyu's body was scattered as he was sent flying. A large cloud of blood spewed from his mouth as he flew, soaring more than 10 feet into the air. "Saint Emperor!" Spiritual Master Bitter Agony and Spiritual Master Nine Lamentations took to the air, receiving Huanji Wuyu's tumbling body. The moment he entered their arms, both of the men were completely shaken. Just a single palm strike from Xuanyuan Wenchen had injured Huanji Wuyu so heavily that it actually endangered his life. "Xuanyuan, Wen, Tian." Blood was leaking from Huanji Wuyu's 7 orifices, and all of the profound energy in his body had been thrown into great chaos, so even speaking had become exceedingly difficult for him. "Huanji Wuyu, this sovereign will let you live for now," Xuanyuan Wenchen said as he looked down at him. "Didn't you say that you would rather see Absolute Monarch Sanctuary be destroyed? Very good, then before this sovereign sends you down to hell, he will fulfill your heart's desire and allow you to personally witness how Absolute Monarch Sanctuary is going to vanish from this world completely. In the world that this sovereign rules, things which do not obey, no matter what they are, have no reason to continue existing. You..." Huanji Wuyu stretched a finger towards Xuanyuan Wenchen, blood gushing from the corner of his mouth yet again. The atmosphere in the sea god arena suddenly grew several times more oppressive. Everyone fiercely sucked in a cold breath of air as the pupils in countless eyes trembled and contracted. Even though they had all heard that the current Xuanyuan Wenchen had grown extremely powerful, now that they had personally witnessed it today, their hearts shook with shock and fear. With a casual wave of his hand, hundreds of Absolute Monarch Sanctuary disciples and more than 10 of their elders had instantly lost their lives. It was as if he was cutting grass, but the people he had cut down were not some abject weaklings. They were members of the most powerful sacred ground in the profound sky continent. overlords and monarchs, positions of power that countless profound practitioners could only dream of attaining in their lifetimes, were no more than grass in front of Qinghong Wenshan. Even absolute monarch sanctuaries, Saint Emperor, the person who was publicly acknowledged by the profound sky continent as the #1 person in the profound way, had been heavily injured by Qinghong Wenshan after just 2 exchanges. This was a power that they could not even imagine in their dreams. Huangji Wuyu, in the past, you could still be compared to our Lord Sword Master. But today, our Lord Sword Master has already become the Heavenly Sovereign, so do you think you can still be mentioned in the same breath as the Heavenly Sovereign? Humph, the Heavenly Sovereign has already given you a chance, but to think that you would actually foolishly refuse him. All of you are truly seeking death. Mighty Heavenly Sword Region's 4th Elder Qingyuan Bo said with a cold smile. After Mighty Heavenly Sword Region's 3 sword attendants, and the top 3 elders had been killed by Jasmine, he had suddenly become the 1st elder, becoming the person who was just below Mighty Heavenly Sword Region's Sword Master and Young Sword Master. Since today was the Heavenly Sovereign Conference, he naturally had to put up a strong front. As expected, Qinghong Wenshan did not continue to attack Huangji Wuyu. Instead, he once again turned towards Sun Moon Divine Hall before speaking. Yi Meixi, you can give this sovereign your answer right now. From today onwards, will you obey this sovereign, or will you choose to rebel against this sovereign? If Yi Meixi could be said to be struggling with this previously, the 2 attacks that Qinghong Wenshan had just shown had completely extinguished the last fires of resistance which burned in his heart. He took a step forward and bowed towards Qinghong Wenshan before speaking. Since my Sun Moon Divine Hall has the words sun and moon in its name, then it is also natural that we view the heavens as sovereign over all. So from today onwards, Yi Meixi and the entire Sun Moon Divine Hall will serve the Heavenly Sovereign with all of our might. Ah, Heavenly Monarch! Many people behind Yi Meixi gasped out in shock and dread. Shut up, Yi Meixi yelled in a low voice. Could it be that you desire for Sun Moon Divine Hall to vanish from the face of the earth after this day? Even though those disgruntled people still wore pained expressions on their faces, no one spoke up again. Very good, Yi Meixi. You have indeed not let this sovereign down, Qinghong Wenshan said with a huge, gratified smile on his face. The gaze he used to appraise Yi Meixi was clearly the gaze someone would use when he was praising an obedient dog. Following this, he turned his gaze towards Supreme Ocean Palace. Fengyi, what say you? Just as Fengyi was about to speak, Zai Jai, who stood by her side, had already taken a step forward. Qinghong Wenshan, our Supreme Ocean Palace and Black Moon Merchant Guild has only attained our current foundation after an entire 10,000 years. We have labored for generation after generation to get to this point, and it was all to uphold the grand might of our Supreme Ocean Palace and to protect our name. Unlike some other people, it was not done for the sake of becoming a dog to a demon like you. You're courting death. Yi Meixi snarled viciously as he turned his head to look towards Zai Jai. Well said, Mr. Zai. The remaining 4 venerable ones of Supreme Ocean Palace all stepped forward as well. We are not as craven and contemptible as some so-called heavenly monarch. Compared to becoming someone else's dog, we would rather merrily die in battle in this place. All of you shut up. What bore down on them was not Qinghong Wenshan's killing intent, but Fengyi's furious rebuke. As Zai Jai and the remaining 4 venerable ones stared at her in disbelief, Fengyi cupped her hands towards Qinghong Wenshan and said, Heavenly Sovereign Qinghong, this sovereign has presented the Sea God Arena as the place where the Heavenly Sovereign will be crowned as sovereign over all. So I'm sure I have already expressed sufficient sincerity. From today onwards, my Supreme Ocean Palace will willingly heed the words of the Heavenly Sovereign. You, what are you saying? Zai Jai asked with widened eyes. The pupils of those eyes were filled with boundless shock, disappointment, and pain. Have you gone mad? We are the 10,000 years old Supreme Ocean Palace. How can we become someone else's slave? If we do this, how can we account to the founding fathers of Supreme Ocean Palace? Allowing our Supreme Ocean Palace to be destroyed like this is what will truly let down our founding fathers. Fengyi said severely. The power of Heavenly Sovereign Qinghong is something that this sovereign has personally tasted. If he wants to destroy our Supreme Ocean Palace, which has lasted for 10,000 years, it will only take him a day. I would rather be a hero for a single day than a dog for 10,000 days, Zai Jai said in a completely disappointed voice. Fengyi, if you persist in doing this, then I, Zai Jai, will no longer recognize you as the sovereign of the seas, and our relationship as husband and wife will end here as well. You, Fengyi gasped as her face turned deathly white. Why do you have to be so stubborn? Is your dignity more important, or the 10,000-year foundation of our Supreme Ocean Palace more important? All the gathered members of Supreme Ocean Palace were completely stunned. They looked at each other, but no one dared to make a sound. On one side was their sovereign of the seas, on the other side was Mr. Zai, someone whom everyone in Supreme Ocean Palace respected. At this moment, not a single one of them dared to speak. HMPH, this woman Fengyi? Yuan-Chi said with a low snort. Even though he held Huangji Wuyu and Fengyi in contempt, he had never denied that Absolute Monarch Sanctuary and Supreme Ocean Palace could be counted as righteous sects. The 12 spiritual masters all radiated an air of righteousness, while the people from Supreme Ocean Palace gave him a good feeling as well. Today, Huangji Wuyu had shown himself worthy of respect, but Fengyi, who had seemed to have a lofty and dignified air about her. Today, Yuan-Chi had found that she was growing more and more loathsome. Ha-ha-ha, ha-ha-ha. As he looked at the conflict that occurred within Supreme Ocean Palace, Xuanyuan Wenchen threw his head back and let out a great laugh. His laugh was incomparably carefree and relaxed, because to him, this scenario was tens of times more satisfying than watching Sun Moon Divine Hall obediently bend their knees to him. Fengyi, on account of your adequate sincerity in personally preparing this Heavenly Sovereign Conference for this sovereign will give you some time to settle the affairs within your own house. However, I will only give you 30 breaths. If you have not settled matters within these 30 breaths, then this sovereign will take action on your behalf. After that, Xuanyuan Wenchen's body suddenly turned as he looked towards the Divine Phoenix sect. The instant that dark and icy gaze was directed towards them, nearly all of the elders and disciples of the Divine Phoenix sect had retreated in shock. How about you, Divine Phoenix sect? Xuanyuan Wenchen said as the corners of his mouth hooked up into a small and bland smile. Feng Hengkong slowly strode forward. There was no fear on his face, and on the contrary, he looked exceptionally calm. Our Divine Phoenix sect has received the favor of an ancient divine spirit, and we have inherited that divine spirit's bloodline. We can lose and we can be destroyed, but even if we burn up the very last of our bloodline, we will never ever surrender. With an explosive boom, Feng Hengkong's body ignited with flames. He snarled at Xuanyuan Wenchen, all of the members of the Divine Phoenix sect who are not afraid to die have all been gathered here. So the amount of people you will want to kill today seems rather high. Author's note. Yuan-Chi still hasn't come out yet. Isn't that infuriating? Chapter 903, Eternal Night Heavenly Devil Miasma. Very good. This is very good indeed. It should be as lively as this. It is only when it's like this that it truly becomes the Heavenly Sovereign Conference. Ha-ha-ha-ha-ha. Xuanyuan Wenchen threw his head back and let out a great laugh. It was as if he felt that the more people who rebelled against him, the better. Feng Hengkong, this sovereign truly wishes that your Phoenix God was still alive today. If that was the case, then this sovereign would be able to personally enjoy the thrill of killing a god. As he was laughing wildly, Xuanyuan Wenchen suddenly let out a low roar. Is there anyone else? Who else desires to rebel against this sovereign? All of you come out now. Clang. All of the Divine Phoenix sect members who were present brandished swords made of phoenix flames. Over 2,000 clusters of strong and weak phoenix flames started to burn, radiating an oppressive might, which made it hard for anyone who was present at the Sea God arena to breathe. Feng Zhuqiu rushed forward first, the tip of his word pointing towards Xuanyuan Wenchen. His ancient voice rang throughout the entire empty Supreme Ocean Palace. Those who are afraid of death can get lost now. Xuanyuan Wenchen, it doesn't matter if our blood paints the ground today, because you will never ever enslave our Divine Phoenix sect. The Divine Phoenix sect had just taken its greatest tumble in its entire history just a few years ago, and this tumble had been caused by the hands of Yuan-Chi. It just so happened that Feng Zuer had deeply rooted feelings for Yuan-Chi. So in the end, Feng Hengkong, Feng Tianwei, and Feng Zhuqiu, the Divine Phoenix sect masters of the past 3 generations, had all accepted this matter, even though this meant that the majority of the Divine Phoenix sect would fall into Yuan-Chi's hands after he married Feng Zuer. They had not accepted this purely because of Feng Zuer's feelings for Yuan-Chi. It was also because they and the rest of the disciples in the sect, while resenting and fearing Yuan-Chi, also felt a sense of admiration and amazement towards him in the depths of their hearts. Even though they had torn down their sect gates and given up Princess Snow, and even though they still held resentment towards Xianxia deep in their hearts, it had become easier and easier to accept what had happened. At least he was a person, and he was a person who had far more guts than the average man at that. Xuanyuan Wenchen, on the other hand, he was merely a crazy dog who had even lost all semblance of humanity once he had obtained great power. Even if resistance basically meant death, they would definitely not allow the Divine Phoenix sect to become slaves under the feet of Xuanyuan Wenchen. The gathered profound practitioners of Absolute Monarch Sanctuary had also all floated into the air. Immediately, thousands of scorching hot or icy cold killing intents locked firmly onto Xuanyuan Wenchen, as thousands of powerful individuals unleashed their auras at the same time, causing the flow of energy in the sea god arena to be thrown into complete disarray as their surroundings became fiercely warped. Those people whose profound strength was slightly weaker, especially those from the various great royal houses or merchant guilds, were all so frightened that they were cowering in their seats, their bodies trembling and shaking. Xuanyuan Wenchen's indifferent gaze swept over them. His eyes were so contemptuous that it seemed as if he was looking at a bunch of bugs who did not know their own strength. His eyes slanted towards Qingyi as he spoke in an indifferent tone. "Qingyi, have you managed to clean up your own household yet?" Qingyi swiftly replied, "Heavenly Sovereign, please abate your anger. I guarantee that not a single person in Supreme Ocean Palace will dare to..." Xuanyuan Wenchen. Before the Sovereign of the Seas, Qingyi could finish speaking. A flash of purple light had erupted from Zai Jai as his sword pierced towards Xuanyuan Wenchen's throat. "Die!" It was clear that Zai Jai was sending himself to his death when he thrust his sword towards Xuanyuan Wenchen. Perhaps this attack was made not so much because of his hatred towards Xuanyuan Wenchen, but more because of his despair and disappointment towards Qingyi. "SS, top!" Qingyi shouted in great shock, but she was basically too late to stop the attack from happening. "HMPH, you can't even settle a household affair as simple as this, so what do I still need you for?" Xuanyuan Wenchen's mouth curled up as one of the hands hidden within his voluminous robes suddenly moved and arched into a claw, however. This claw was not pointed at Zai Jai, but Qingyi. Crack, a pitch-black sword beam tore a long rent through space, and before Zai Jai could even approach Xuanyuan Wenchen, the aura that emanated from this pitch-black sword beam had sent him flying. He tumbled onto the ground, and in the next instant, the pitch-black sword beam had already pierced into the chest of Qingyi, who barely even reacted to it. The Qingyi, who had been pierced by this pitch-black sword beam, fell to the ground like a kite that had its strings cut. Even the blood that sprayed out of her body was reddish-black in color. Sovereign of the Seas! Sovereign of the Seas! The current scene had totally caught everyone present by surprise. Just when they were on the brink of a vicious battle that threatened to break out at any moment, the first person that Xuanyuan Wenchen had chosen to attack was actually Qingyi, the person who had prepared this Heavenly Sovereign conference and had expressed her loyalty in a sufficiently sincere manner. Perhaps even Xuanyuan Wenchen, a half-devil whose humanity had been warped and distorted by darkness' profound energy, had despised Qingyi's decision in the depths of his heart. "Sovereign of the Seas!" Zai Jai's expression greatly changed, and he could not be bothered to attack Xuanyuan Wenchen again. He quickly rushed over to Qingyi's side. A round, pitch-black hole had appeared in her chest after she had been pierced by the darkness. A pool of blood appeared beneath her, growing larger by the second. The blood that leaked out of her body was gradually turning darker as well. Zai Jai fiercely gritted his teeth as his heart was wrenched by intense pain. Even though he thought that Qingyi was in the wrong in the end, she was still the Sovereign of the Seas, and they had still been husband and wife for a millennia. He also believed that she did not make this choice because she feared death like Yimexi. Instead, he believed that she was truly doing this so that she could forcibly protect the 10,000-year foundation of Supreme Ocean Palace. When all was said and done, Qingyi was still a level 10 monarch. No matter how powerless she was in front of Xuanyuan Wenchen, she should not be so weak as to die from a single blow from Xuanyuan Wenchen. It was just that she had been anxious and distracted when she saw Zai Jai attack Xuanyuan Wenchen. Moreover, she had never even dreamed that Xuanyuan Wenchen would suddenly attack her. That was how she received such a heavy injury from Xuanyuan Wenchen. In fact, the blow Xuanyuan Wenchen had dealt her was a fatal one. Given the extremely serious nature of this injury and that dreadful darkness profound energy, most other people would have died instantly. Given Qingyi's profound strength, She could perhaps hold out for another 4 hours, but that was merely the last gasps of a dying woman. The fury and killing intent of the Supreme Ocean Palace's 4 venerable ones had risen to their very limit. Their hearts no longer contained even a shred of hesitation or anxiety. Lightning crackled between the palms of Venerable Purple as he roared in rage. Absolute Monarch Sanctuary, Saint Emperor, Divine Phoenix Sect Master, no matter what grievances and resentments we had against each other in the past. Today, let us act together to kill the demon known as Xianxia Cultivation. Even if all of us have to die here today, let us be companions as we travel on the road towards the Yellow Springs. Boom, the 11 spiritual masters of Absolute Monarch Sanctuary all advanced forward, their exploding profound energy shaking an area that was tens of kilometers wide. Tusk. Despite facing resistance from so many people, Xianxia Cultivation merely shook his head in regret. How pathetic and laughable all of your struggles are. In the eyes of this sovereign today, what does your power even amount to? Tusk, but I can't blame you lot. After all, none of you can understand the heights of power this sovereign has ascended to. I don't mind telling you all this tidbit. This sovereign has already clearly sensed the existence of a whole new world. A place where you lot won't even be able to dream of reaching even after 10,000 lifetimes. Compared to that place, everything that exists in the world is simply far too small and insignificant. A whole new world. Xianxia's heart thumped fiercely in his chest. When a person's profound strength truly entered the realm of the divine, that person would be able to sense the presences of worlds that existed on different planes of existence. This was what Jasmine had told him back then, and the Golden Crow spirit had said something similar as well. That was also to say that the current Xianxia Cultivation had already properly stepped into the realm that belonged to the way of the divine. In the profound sky continent, it had only been a legend and no one had ever truly come into contact with it before, the divine profound realm. When Xianxia Cultivation had invaded Demon Imperial City, even though he had managed to defeat Xianxia, Feng Zuer and the little demon empress even when they had joined hands to fight him, he had also sustained serious injuries. So at the very least, he had not reached a realm of power where he completely suppressed them. That was also to say that the Xianxia Cultivation at that time had only taken half a step into the divine profound, or perhaps he was just at the borders of truly stepping into the divine profound realm. It had only been a little more than a month since then, but he had actually truly managed to step into that fabled realm. Heh, perhaps it is true that we cannot kill you, but you can forget about ever seeing us grovel at your feet, Feng Hengkong said with a great laugh. Since he already knew that he was certain to die, he felt absolutely no fear. Whoosh! Feng Hengkong, who possessed the weakest profound strength among all the great powers, used the phoenix flames that he was burning with all his power to stir everyone's flow of energy. After that, all of profound energies belonging to the members of Absolute Monarch Sanctuary, Supreme Ocean Palace, and the Divine Phoenix Sect erupted out at full force. Form the Boundless Star Formation, Infinite Lightning Beast Domain, Heaven-Scorching Phoenix Domain. Thousands of people rose in the air as 3 different gigantic domains swiftly rose up around Xianxia Cultivation. However, Xianxia Cultivation did not move a single muscle. Instead, he said with a merry smile, "What a magnificent spectacle, such staunch and unyielding determination. Ah, it truly is such a pity. It looks like it is about time for all of you to understand just how pathetic and laughable your struggles are. If I were to allow all of you to die such simple deaths, it would simply be far too dull. At least let this sovereign revel in your despairing and discontented faces as you die." The 3 great powers attacked at full force as 3 domains, which contained the limits of power that belonged to thousands of strong individuals stretched out towards Xianxia Cultivation. But Xianxia Cultivation behaved as if he did not pay them any mind. The black light in his eyes flashed as both of his hands suddenly clapped together, and a cluster of black light exploded in midair, instantly shooting out beams of black light which covered the heavens and the earth. Eternal night, heavenly devil miasma. These beams of black light easily pierced the 3 rapidly forming domains, trapping all the members of the 3 great powers within. As the black energy engulfed everything, Yimexi let out a strangled cry as he hurriedly scampered backwards, but immediately after that, he breathed a heavy sigh of relief as he discovered that the black energy had not touched Sun Moon Divine Hall. This black energy moved far too quickly. It was at a speed that defied all knowledge. Every single one of the members belonging to the 3 great powers, from the lowliest disciples to the lofty spiritual masters and venerable ones, had been trapped by this black energy. Not a single one of them had escaped. All of their faces turned dark, but following that, miserable cries, which shook the heavens, suddenly erupted from within their midst, as most of them instantly dropped to the ground like flies and started writhing on the floor in agony. This was especially true for Divine Phoenix sect. Besides Feng Zhuqiu and Feng Tianwei, every single one of them had fallen to the ground. All of them let out howls of pain and sorrow as black energy coiled around their bodies, administering a purgatorial punishment that stretched the agony they were experiencing to its limits. Even Feng Zhuqiu, Feng Tianwei, the 11 spiritual masters of Absolute Monarch Sanctuary and the 4 venerable ones of Supreme Ocean Palace were writhing and twisting in the air, expressions of extreme agony appearing on their faces. The 3 great domains which had just been formed were also weakening at an extremely fast pace. "Royal Father, Grandfather!" Feng Zhuer gasped in shock, the color draining out of her pretty face. "That is devilish poison," Xianxia said as he grabbed Feng Zhuer's hand. He was just about to rush out before he suddenly and swiftly retreated, his eyes shooting towards the east. "Xuanyuan Wenchen, what did you do?" Zai asked in a pain-filled voice. "Naturally, this is a favor that this sovereign has given to all of you," Xuanyuan Wenchen said as he laughed out loud. "This is the devilish poison that this sovereign has prepared just for all of you. However, you don't need to be afraid. While you're afflicted by this devilish poison, you won't die immediately, and you'll even live for an entire 2 hours longer. However, over the course of these 2 hours, you will endure 99 different kinds of pain, and every single kind of pain will be engraved into your memories so deeply that you won't forget even if you reincarnate 100 times. After that, all of you will die by being reduced to puddles of black-colored blood. Ha ha ha, what are you waiting for? Why haven't you thanked this sovereign for the grace I have shown to you?" Zai's eyes widened into saucers, and he abruptly fell from the sky the moment he spoke. He half knelt to the ground, and even though he staunchly refused to let out any screams of pain, all of the muscles in his body were fiercely trembling and spasming under the extreme agony he was experiencing. Chapter 904, annihilated with bare hands the moment the 3 forces began their joint attack on their common enemy. Or to be exact, before their attack had yet to officially begin, they had already crumbled apart. Terrifying energy waves pushed everyone else to the edges of the Sea God arena, and not a single person from the forces of the 7 nations were not shaking in their boots, their hearts filled with terror. The strongest out of the 7 nations, Divine Phoenix sect, 2 of the 4 sacred grounds, and even the 2 that were ranked highest in terms of overall strength, Absolute Monarch Sanctuary and Supreme Ocean Palace. The combined strength of all the top experts from the 3 forces actually suffered instantaneous defeat before Xuanyuan Wenchen. They were like a bunch of mortals, amidst their roars of unwillingness, challenging a divine spirit that was more powerful than what they could imagine. The outcome was naturally self-evident. Profound practitioners with strength below that of a monarch all tumbled onto the ground, suffering from pain that made them wish for death as they let out howls that could numb one's heart. Those powerful monarchs were also bitterly hanging on while suffering from unbearable pain that, attending to themselves, was all they could manage. Such a scene not only shocked the 7 nations' forces to the point their organs felt like ripping apart. The entirety of Sun Moon Divine Hall turned chillingly silent. Initially, a few of the experts with slightly more backbone within Sun Moon Divine Hall were still opposed to Yi Meixi's choice. However, after looking at the scene before their eyes, they began to rejoice that Yi Meixi had chosen the path of survival. At this moment, several powerful, profound energies suddenly approached from the eastern skies. Xuanyuan Wenchen's eyes shifted, and he said with a shady smile, "It seems I have another piece of good news." 4 sword region elders flew over like streaks of lightning. Their bodies were completely stained in blood. Evidently, they had all suffered from considerably heavy injuries, and in their hands, they were also dragging a person with a frail aura, covered in blood. They descended on the Sea God arena, threw the person in their hands next to Xuanyuan Wenchen. The person at the front said while gasping for air, "Heavenly Sovereign, your expectations were not betrayed." Seeing the person that was covered entirely in blood, the faces of the entire crowd from Absolute Monarch Sanctuary that were presently enduring immense pain gravely changed. Yuanba, very good." Xuanyuan Wenchen narrowed his eyes as he looked down at the man with unbearably frail aura beneath his feet. "Zia Yuanba, after wasting so much time and breaking apart so many people from my sword region, On the day this sovereign officially becomes the heavenly sovereign, you finally fall into this sovereign's hands. Tell me, is this praise and commendation given to this sovereign by the heavens? Xuanyuan, Wen, Tian. Xia Yuanba was not unconscious. His two hands were grasping on the ground, but he was no longer able to stand, and only groans filled with extreme hatred and resentment were coming out of his mouth. Whether the unneeded trash dies sooner or later hardly makes any difference. But it's best that you die as soon as possible. A black light flashed in Xuanyuan Wenshin's hand as he grabbed towards Xia Yuanba's head. Stop! Earth-shaking furious roars resounded from Absolute Monarch Sanctuary. Though carrying devilish poison in their bodies, Spiritual Master Ancient Blue and Spiritual Master Detached Heart moved at the same time amidst their furious roars. The severely injured Huangji Wuyu forcefully pulled out the Primal Chaos Heavenly Ruler and threw it towards Xuanyuan Wenshin with all his might. Heh! Xuanyuan Wenshin let out a sinister, venomous smile. With a flip of his palm, a ray of black light struck the Primal Chaos Heavenly Ruler that came flying towards him. The Primal Chaos Heavenly Ruler instantly bent and flew back in the reverse direction while carrying a black glow, ruthlessly smashing onto Spiritual Master Detached Heart and Spiritual Master Ancient Blue. Spiritual Master Ancient Blue and Spiritual Master Detached Heart groaned at the same time, as they were sent flying backwards with a deep, bloody ditch left on each of their bodies. Xuanyuan Wenshin's hand gestures once again changed. Two rays of black sword beams appeared before him, and they pierced towards Spiritual Master Ancient Blue and Spiritual Master Detached Heart, who were still flying backwards. Master! The two rays of black sword beams were merely about a foot long, but Xia Yuanba, who was beneath Xuanyuan Wenshin's feet, could clearly sense that within them were terrifying energies that were enough to annihilate high-level monarchs several times over. With a roar filled with despair, golden stars appeared haphazardly before his eyes, and there seemed to be something fiercely erupting from within his chest. His body, which was initially in a dying state, suddenly shot up as he smashed his fist towards Xuanyuan Wenshin. On the fist that had expanded to a width of up to half a foot, a layer of seemingly eye-piercing, intense golden light was actually shrouding it. Oh! Xuanyuan Wenshin's expression slightly changed. Under a miraculous burst of immense power, space was intensely distorted, and the directions of the two pitch-black sword beams were offset by a huge degree, as they both flew towards the sky. The fist that was shrouded with golden light had also ruthlessly smashed onto Xuanyuan Wenshin's chest at this moment. Boom! With a loud reverberation, Xuanyuan Wenshin's chest slightly sunk, and his entire upper body was bent a full 90 degrees backwards. Under the immense rebound, Xia Yuanba was ruthlessly sent flying backwards, and he smashed heavily onto Spiritual Master Ancient Blue, who was heavily injured again right after being struck by the devilish poison. With a startled look in his eyes, he then completely collapsed. Yuan, Ba! Spiritual Master Ancient Blue reached out his hand towards Xia Yuanba, but he was no longer able to move him even the slightest bit. Ha 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 ha! Xuanyuan Wenshin's upper body slowly straightened. Pressing his hand onto his chest, he let out a sinister laugh. The look on his face had grown even more hideous and devil-like, as expected of the tyrannical emperor's divine veins. Even in a half-dead state, you were still able to let this sovereign feel pain, as I thought. You can't be left alive. Though he had already killed many people today, from beginning to end, he had yet to move a single step, because they were basically not worthy of him to moving to kill them. However, this time, amidst his ferocious laughter, he flew up into the air, and with a pair of demonic claws that were enveloped in black light, he grabbed at Xia Yuanba. Because Xia Yuanba was one of the few potential threats in this world. Xuanyuan Wenshin! Just as Xuanyuan Wenshin had flown out, a thunderous roar suddenly resounded next to his ears. This voice had also instantly stopped his figure. Xia Yuanba, who was waiting for death in despair, suddenly widened his eyes when he heard the voice. He instantly regained his clarity, and with a pair of eyes that carried deep, utter disbelief, he tremblingly turned towards the direction the voice was coming from. You'd best be obedient and stand still over there. Otherwise, I can't guarantee that your son's brain won't completely turn into paste. This voice carried a deep, threatening tone, and even clearly carried a hint of ridicule. Following the direction the voice was coming from, the crowd only then realized that two people had suddenly appeared in the sky above, and there was another person who was being held in one of the two's hands. After seeing their faces clearly, seemingly almost every single one of their faces revealed an extremely astonished look. That is... Xianxia Wenchen slowly turned around. His dark, hawkish eyes instantly clashed with Yun Qi's eyes. Xianxia Wendao was being gripped by the head by Yun Qi and was held in midair. His entire body was like a corpse being held by his scalp. The constant light spasms of his four limbs proved that he was still alive, and frail groans were constantly escaping from his mouth. "Save me, father, save me! Yun Qi!" At the furthest corner of the Sea God arena, Dongfeng Xiu and Qin Wusheng lost control of their voices and loudly roared out. Never had they ever doubted their own eyes like this very moment. Yun Qi and Princess Snow? Isn't Yun Qi already dead? It's really Yun Qi. He's not dead. Yun Qi's name was known throughout the profound Sky Continent. Several months ago, news of his death had spread through the profound Sky Continent, and this piece of news had even come from the four great sacred grounds. Out of everyone present, the most astonished were undoubtedly Huangji Wuyu, Fengyi, and Yi Meixi, because several months ago they had after all personally seen Yun Qi's corpse. Royal father, grandfather, great-grandfather. Feng Zuer had already charged down, landing in front of Feng Hengkang and the rest. Feng Hengkang, who was presently enduring the torture of the devilish poison, did not expect that he would still get to see Feng Zuer again while he was still alive, and for a moment, his feelings were a mix of sorrow and joy. However, he desperately roared out, "Zuer, why must you return? Run, hurry and run, run! Zuer, run, hurry and run!" Feng Tianwei painfully howled as well. "We were able to see you one last time. We're happy even if we have to die. You hurry, run!" "Brother-in-law, is it really you?" Xia Yuanba was unable to stand. He lightly mumbled, 2 streaks of tears warmly slid down his face. "Yuanba, you must have forgotten the words I once told you," Yun Qi said with a smile. "As long as you have yet to see my corpse with your own eyes, don't ever believe that I'm already dead. You were able to persist up to now under Xianxia Wenchen's chase. Truly incredible." "Heh, hey," Xia Yuanba laughed, laughing especially joyfully. With Yun Qi's hand squeezing onto Xianxia Wendao's head, Xianxia Wenchen no longer dared to act as rashly as he expected. His eyes narrowed as he firmly sized Yun Qi up. He sensed the very evident difference in Yun Qi, and it was an extremely huge difference as well. "Yun Qi, this sovereign truly admires you. If you had stayed in the illusory demon realm, you could have lived for another 10 days to half a month, yet you just had to rush here to seek death. Seek death? Aren't you afraid that your son will die right in front of me?" Yun Qi raised Xianxia Wendao high up. "This is your only son. If I were to crush him to death, if you want to have another descendant, you can only give birth to a new one. Oh, no, I have almost forgotten something. This body of yours is even something you snatched from someone else. So no matter how many sons or daughters you give birth to, they would always belong to someone else. In other words, if I were to crush him to death, this heavenly sovereign you claim yourself to be will be completely left without a single descendant. Now that's truly sad and miserable. You dare to threaten this sovereign?" Thick black aura emitted out from Xianxia Wenchen's eyes, and his voice completely sank. "Heh, you made a mistake. You're not even worthy of me threatening you." Facing Xianxia Wenchen's ice-cold dark aura and killing intent, Yun Qi simply let out a low laugh. Then, with a swing of his arm, under everyone's astonished eyes, he directly threw Xianxia Wendao down, and he had even thrown him towards mighty heavenly sword region. Xianxia Bo hurriedly stepped forward to catch Xianxia Wendao, and was a little disbelieving that Yun Qi would actually throw away his only life-saving straw. That could threaten Xianxia Wenchen, just like that. Xianxia Wenchen's eyes slightly narrowed as well. "Be obedient and take good care of your young master. You people had best absolutely not let him die." Yun Qi crossed his arms in front of his chest and calmly said, putting aside mighty heavenly sword region. Yun Qi's actions were even unexpected to everyone else, and they even thought that Yun Qi had basically gone crazy. The expression of Xianxia Bo, who caught Xianxia Wendao, quickly changed, as he said with a trembling voice, "Heavenly Sovereign, young Sovereign Master is not in any life-threatening danger, however. However, his profound veins have been crippled." "Yun Qi, you sure have huge guts." Xianxia Jiu, who was at the front of Heavenly Sword Villa's seats, stood up and roared out, "Heavenly Sovereign, you must definitely not let this brat die a straightforward death. You must definitely leave him begging for death." Xianxia Wenchen slowly raised his hand. An array of pitch-black sword beam tore through the dimensional rift, shooting straight towards Yun Qi. "Yun Qi, watch out! Watch out! Dodge it!" Astonished loud roars resounded from Divine Phoenix Sect, Absolute Monarch Sanctuary, and Supreme Ocean Palace. Though Xianxia Wenchen's pitch-black sword beams did not look remarkable, They were completely terrifying to an unfathomable extent. Yuan Qi, however, did not move away in the slightest, and his palm instantly flashed. In an instant, that pitch-black sword beam that was aimed at his throat was fixed on his hand. Then, with a light grasp of his hand, it had already turned into a large pile of black powder, dispersing without a trace. Everyone's eyes protruded out from this scene, while the people that were wildly roaring out had even completely stiffened. Their voices were also left stuck in their throats. Xuanyuan Wenquan's terrifying pitch-black sword beam that could almost take the life of someone as powerful as Qfengyi with a single strike was actually annihilated bareheaded by Yuan Qi. Ha-ha-ha-ha, ha-ha-ha-ha. Xuanyuan Wenquan was not astonished and had instead laughed out wildly. Yuan Qi, whenever this sovereign sees you, you will always bring this sovereign a pleasant surprise. As expected, this time is no exception. Heh, don't speak too soon. There might be an even larger surprise later on, Yuan Qi said smilingly. Big brother Yuan. Below, Feng Zuer's anxious voice resounded. Yuan Qi's eyes lowered, and with a flip of his left hand, a mass of green light sprinkled down from the sky, enveloping all of the people of Divine Phoenix sect within. In just a few breaths of time, the devilish poison in all of the Phoenix disciples had been completely purified. The pain on their faces had disappeared without a trace, and the normal flows of their profound energy had been restored. Every single one of them looked at their own hands, exhilarated to the point of losing themselves. Yuan Qi's figure blurred as he directly detoured around Xuanyuan Wenquan and arrived before Xia Yuanba and Spiritual Master Ancient Blue. He hurriedly stuffed a pellet into Xia Yuanba's mouth and used the light of purification to purify all the devilish poison in Spiritual Master Ancient Blue's body. Brother-in-law, brother-in-law, Xia Yuanba called out twice consecutively. Though he was suffering from extremely heavy injuries, he was still as happy as a child. Xuanyuan Wenquan did not stop him, nor did he turn around. His pair of eyes gradually narrowed into extremely thin slits. Seeing Spiritual Master Ancient Blue and the entirety of Divine Phoenix sect recovering back to normal, the people of Absolute Monarch Sanctuary and Supreme Ocean Palace, who were presently enduring the cruel torture of the devilish poison, revealed incomparably joyful looks. The crowd of spiritual masters and venerables forcefully endured the pain of the devilish poison and let out pleading voices. Asgard Master Yuan we will have, to trouble you, to remove the poison. However, Yuan Qi had instead turned around and once again rose into the air, arriving in front of Xuanyuan Wenquan, turning a deaf ear to Absolute Monarch Sanctuaries and Supreme Ocean Palaces pleading. Chapter 905. Beneath the Divine Profound, all are ants. 1. Yuan Qi's indifferent look clearly meant that he was not going to save the people from Absolute Monarch Sanctuary and Supreme Ocean Palace. Zai carried Qfengyi, who was on her dying breath, with a single arm and shouted out with all his might while enduring immense pain. Asgard Master Yuan, please, with your magnanimity, save us. Save you? Not even turning his head around, Yuan Qi coldly said, no matter how many grudges I have with Divine Phoenix sect, I am now, after all, half a son-in-law of Divine Phoenix sect, so saving them could be said to be a natural thing to do. Spiritual Master Ancient Blue is Yuanba's master, and I also owe him a debt, so saving him is something I ought to do even more. You people? Ha! First, we're not familiar. Second, we're not related. And third, I don't owe you any debts. What do the lives and deaths of you people have to do with me? It's already benevolent of me to not have followed your example and thrown a stone down on the man who had fallen into a well like you all have done to me. Yuan Qi coldly laughed in his heart. Zai must not be aware that on the day Jasmine left, Huangji Wuyu, Qfengyi, and Yi Meixi left Divine Phoenix sect and combined their strengths to throw a stone down on a fallen man a second time. If the little demon empress had not arrived in time, the consequences would have basically been disastrous. If he had known of this incident, he probably would not have the face to seek help from him either. Zai was left speechless, while Spiritual Master Bitter Agony of the Sanctuary obscurely said, Asgard Master Yuan, we are all not afraid of death, but Xuanyuan Wenquan is our common enemy. Put aside our former grudges at the very least. For now, combine our strengths to deal with Xuanyuan Wenquan. As the leader of the Sanctuary's 12 spiritual masters, Spiritual Master Bitter Agony's profound strength was only second to Huangji Wuyu. However, these words of his were said in such a fragmented and disorganized manner. It could be imagined just how much pain he was suffering from the devilish poison. Even someone as powerful as Spiritual Master Bitter Agony was in such a state, not to mention others. HMPH, since you people aren't afraid of death, then there's even less of a need for me to waste my energy on poking my nose into others' business. As for Xuanyuan Wenchen, Yun-Chi slightly narrowed his eyes, I alone am enough. Oog! Spiritual Master Bitter Agony's lips trembled and was no longer able to think of anything else to say. Ho 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 ho! Unexpectedly, Xuanyuan Wenchen did not burst out into loud laughter and had instead let out a low chuckle. Yun-Chi, this sovereign is really beginning to enjoy your personality. Such arrogance. But unfortunately, in this world, there is no longer anyone else who has the qualifications to behave so arrogantly in front of this sovereign. He stretched out his dark hand with his palm facing Yun-Chi. You definitely can't imagine just what kind of realm of power this sovereign has attained. I can say the same to you. Yun-Chi lightly smiled. To be blunt, the strength this sovereign presently possesses has reached to such a powerful extent that even this sovereign is feeling afraid of it. In a short 1 month, your profound strength has once again stepped across a large realm and has truly astonished this sovereign, but unfortunately, even if your profound strength increases 10 times more, you still wouldn't be this sovereign's match. Hey, Yun-Chi sullenly laughed. The people who died at my hands all believed that was the case right before their deaths. Xuanyuan Wenchen did not mind Yun-Chi's words in the slightest. He felt that with the present realm he had attained in this world, there were no longer any existing remarks that could possibly anger him. He disdainfully said, "Where's the little demon empress? Is she not with you? Adding her, you might be able to delay your death by a slight bit." I said this earlier, against you I alone am enough. Yun-Chi swung his arm and a red light flashed right after. The heaven-smiting devil slayer sword loftily appeared, and a vermilion red sword beam was swung down from above. Boo-woo-um! With the present Yun-Chi and adding the present heaven-smiting devil slayer sword, though it was merely a casual swing, it had instantly collapsed the surrounding space. The enormous sea god arena crumbled apart amidst the explosive spatial noises, and like the sudden rise of terrifying, surging waves, a disastrous storm blew toward the sea god arena. Amidst the countless terrified shouts and screams, other than Yun-Chi and Xuanyuan Wenchen, everyone else were like boats being tossed by the waves and were swept out of sea god arena, falling toward the supreme ocean palace beneath. Feng Zuer hurriedly moved, protecting Xia Yuanba and the people from the Blue Wind royal family within a gentle fireball, allowing them to stay safe and unscathed during their landing. Falling from the height which Sea God Arena was basically a piece of cake to the experts of Supreme Ocean Palace and Absolute Monarch Sanctuary. However, with the devilish poison in their bodies, just the slightest channeling of profound energy could intensify their pain. The height, which was usually nothing to speak of, presently had them flailing their limbs about as they fell. Feng Henkang hurriedly charged towards Zuer and anxiously said, "Zuer, don't stay here any longer, hurry and run. Run. Otherwise, it will really be too late. Xuanyuan Wenchen has already turned completely into a devil, and he's even capable of defeating a sacred master with a single blow. You will just be sending yourself to death for nothing if you stay here." Feng Zuer lightly shook her head. Her eyes were looking at the figure in the sky, which was already especially far away, and gently said, "I believe in Big Brother Yun." Feng Henkang gnashed his teeth and stomped his feet out of anxiety. The sea god arena crumbled, space itself collapsed, and the sky filled with screams. Yet Yun-Chi and Xuanyuan Wenchen were still facing each other in the air with incomparable calm, as if they had been completely isolated from the outside world. Yun-Chi raised the heaven-smiting devil slayer sword horizontally. Its tip pointed at the center of Xuanyuan Wenchen's forehead, yet the aura on his body was as quiet as sand. An extremely uncomfortable aura caused Xuanyuan Wenchen's brows to greatly furrow. Retracting his palm, he indifferently asked, "Though it's not important, this sovereign still wants to ask. Where in the world did you get that sword from? You can consider asking King Yama after you die. Show your devil's sword if you don't wish to die too quickly." Facing Xuanyuan Wenchen, who was already arrogant to the point where he was no longer putting anyone in his eyes, Yun-Chi released an arrogant demeanor that completely did not lose to his. There's no longer anyone in this world who has the qualifications to have this sovereign use his devil sword. That includes you too, Xuanyuan Wenchen said with a smirk. He reached out his hand towards Yun-Chi with his wrist hooked up. "Come, allow this sovereign to witness the extent of your struggle. Not only will this sovereign not use his devil sword, he will only use a single hand to completely shatter your frail and laughable self-confidence." Author's note. Up arrow flag. Then you best not die too quickly. Yun Qi growled, and the heaven-smiting devil slayer sword was suddenly swung out. The monstrous might of the sword swirled up the entire surroundings, and under this sword strike, the sea god arena that had floated in the air for several thousand years completely collapsed, filling the entire sky with scattered jades that were being shot out. A storm of sword aura smashed towards Xianxia Wenchen, yet Xianxia Wenchen did not resist in the slightest, allowing himself to be pushed nearly 50 kilometers away by the sword aura storm. Only his loud, mad laughter resounded in the sky. Ha 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 ha! He understood that Yun Qi wanted to pull the battlefield away, to prevent involving the people that were still staying in Supreme Ocean Palace. This too coincided with his intentions. After all, his only son was below as well, and he was basically the frailest one there. Xianxia Wenchen die? Purgatory? Golden crow flames and phoenix flames ignited around Yun Qi's body at the same time, and his profound energy and eyes turned a violent scarlet red. After distancing themselves 50 kilometers from the Ocean Palace, he no longer had a shred of hesitation. With a loud roar, the heaven-smiting devil slayer sword carried monstrous, blazing flames as it smashed straight towards Xianxia Wenchen. In the instant the sword was swung out, clouds within a radius of 50 kilometers had all dispersed. Enveloped by the might of this one strike, the light in Xianxia Wenchen's eyes brightened, as they emitted a black glow that was several times more excited than before. A truly astonishing pressure. This sovereign has surely underestimated you. Never did this sovereign expect that you had actually reached such a realm of power. You have actually more or less surpassed this sovereign of a month ago, but unfortunately, no matter how strong a mortal is, how could one compare to a devil god? When this sovereign suddenly stepped into that realm, everything in this world, including this sovereign of a month ago, have all become insignificant ants. Xianxia Wenchen moved, but his right hand was still behind his back. He had only stretched out his left hand. Black light circled around his hand, and a black shadow appeared as his hand swung in the air, colliding with Yun Qi's enormous vermilion red sword. With a loud bang, dimensional rifts instantly tore. Yun Qi's sword stance was immediately broken, and his entire figure tumbled back from the shockwave as well. However, he immediately charged back out, and the heaven-smiting devil slayer sword once again smashed towards Xianxia Wenchen. Heh! Xianxia Wenchen let out a quiet laugh. His pitch-black hand once again reached out to grab the enormous vermilion sword, flinging out one dark afterimage after another which blew Yun Qi's sword stance far away. Though in his eyes, Yun Qi barely had the qualifications to exchange blows with him. No, Yun Qi most probably did not have the qualifications at all. He was still unwilling to have his body make direct contact with that enormous scarlet red sword. Back then in the illusory demon realm, the pain he suffered after taking that one strike was something he could not forget even in death. Boom, 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 boom. Whenever their two powers collided, they shook the world as if they were the profound lightning of the ninth heaven. To the crowd at Supreme Ocean Palace, every single explosion was like a terrifying disaster. They could feel the entire Ocean Palace shaking, and they were basically unable to get stable footing. Even when they were covering their ears tightly, the blood in their entire bodies was still rumbling intensely as if they were being boiled. Boom! After an explosive reverberation, an enormous wave rose from the sea, reaching up to several kilometers in height. Ah! Feng Zhuqi, who had lived for more than 1,000 years, paled from fright. Looking at the constantly quaking space in the northern direction, no matter how he thought about it, he was unable to believe that these were all coming from 50 kilometers away. Is this even strength that can be possessed by humans? Big brother Yun, you have actually become so incredible, Feng Zhuo muttered in astonishment as well. Yun Qi smashed out 40 or so sword strikes consecutively, and they were all blasted away by Xianxia Wenchen without making a single contact. Furthermore, he was only using his left hand, while his right hand had been placed neatly behind his back the entire time. Forget about harming Xianxia Wenchen, Yun Qi was not even able to close to a distance of 100 meters from him. It seems like this is your limit, Xianxia Wenchen lightly laughed. Though you have indeed gotten stronger than this sovereign has expected, this is all it amounts to. In this sovereign's eyes, everything beneath the heavens are but mere ants, and you, though you are the biggest one of them all, you are still similarly just an ant. Now, it's about time for this sovereign to attack. Xianxia Wenchen, who had been defending leisurely the entire time, finally took up a different stance with his hand. No longer flinging it out, he instead suddenly opted for a forward grab. A pitch-black hand opened within the dimensional rift, instantly growing up to several dozen meters as it grabbed straight towards Xianxia. Come, struggle with all your might within this sovereign's devil claw. The more tenacious your struggle is, the better. If this game ends too early, it would be a little too boring, ha 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 ha. This pitch-black devil claw looked as if it was moving extremely slowly, but it seemed to have leapt through space, instantly arriving in front of Xianxia. Half narrowing his eyes, Xianxia's figure slightly blurred. Croc! Space in a radius of about 30 meters, along with Xianxia's afterimage, was torn into pieces by the black devil claw. As if he had used instantaneous movement, Xianxia's true body had long since appeared about 3 meters away from Qinghong Wenchen. With a growl, he smashed his sword right towards Qinghong Wenchen's head as a strange fiery light flashed in the depths of Xianxia's eyes. Oh, Qinghong Wenchen was slightly astonished, but right after, he flashed a playful smile as a black shadow collided with the heaven-smiting Devil Slayer sword. Tumble back obediently for this sovereign? Boom. The heaven-smiting Devil Slayer sword clashed with the black devil shadow in the air, but this time, the heaven-smiting Devil Slayer sword that was previously blasted away every single time had merely paused for a moment, followed by an explosive ignition of flames. Not only was it not blasted away, its might and speed had actually increased several times, instantly dispersing away Qinghong Wenchen's power. Carrying the blurs of pitch-black space, it smashed straight towards Qinghong Wenchen's head. Golden annihilation! Qinghong Wenchen had believed that Xianxia had already reached the limit of his strength previously. Furthermore, the strength at this limit had already far surpassed his expectations, and even in his dreams, he would be unable to imagine just how his strength could have increased again by several times in an instant. He hurriedly withdrew and retreated speedily. His left arm rapidly swung out. However, he had merely raised it halfway through, before it was firmly suppressed back by the overbearingly immense power coming from the heaven-smiting Devil Slayer sword. Qinghong Wenchen was greatly shocked for the very first time, and he wanted to hurriedly raise the right arm he had been keeping behind his back. However, he was basically too late. The power on his left arm was instantly crushed, and the heaven-smiting Devil Slayer sword smashed onto Qinghong Wenchen's chest with incomparable ferocity. The tyrannical golden crow flames exploded with intense light. Ooah! Qinghong Wenchen, who had been standing proudly straight in the air, was smashed flying away like a spinning top, and alongside screams that sounded as if he was a pig being slaughtered. He flew for several dozens of meters before he managed to stop, yet the screams still did not end. His entire body was trembling, and he was simply screaming even more wretchedly than those people who were struck with the devilish poison. His chest was impressively marked with a vermilion red mark that stretched nearly a foot long. Xianxia raised the heaven-smiting Devil Slayer sword with a grin and once again pointed it at Qinghong Wenchen. Qinghong Wenchen, you'd better not forget your own words and continue using a single hand. Otherwise, this so-called heavenly sovereign you make yourself out to be won't have any face at all. Chapter 906, Beneath the Divine Profound, All Are Ants Too. H. Qinghong Wenchen's miserable cry practically shook the heavens, and the earth and those who were in Supreme Ocean Palace, which was 50 kilometers away, could clearly hear it. They looked towards the north, and a look of deep shock and disbelief appeared on everyone's faces. That miserable scream belonged to Qinghong Wenchen. That cry belongs to Qinghong Wenchen. Could it be that? Could it be that Qinghong Wenchen isn't Xianxia's match? Could it be that Xianxia has heavily injured Qinghong Wenchen? A profound practitioner from one of the 7 nations asked in an incredibly excited voice. The strength that Qinghong Wenchen displayed in front of them was equivalent to that of the legendary devil gods, so they could not fathom what kind of power could go up against him. They had never imagined that Xianxia would be able to duel Qinghong Wenchen, yet the miserable scream that they had heard had come from Qinghong Wenchen. Is this truly real? Feng Hengkong asked. It felt like all of them were caught in some kind of dream right now. That can't be true. The eyes of everyone from mighty Heavenly Sword region had widened into saucers, their faces filled with fright. The Heavenly Sovereign's might is comparable to that of a devil god, so how can he be losing to Xianxia? Ha, this is truly hard to believe, Qin Wusheng said as he looked at the northern sky before sighing deeply. 7 years ago, he was just a child who had just entered the profound palace and still needed me to protect him from the shadows. Today, in 7 short years, he actually managed to reach these heights. Rather than saying that this is a feat that was completely unprecedented and never to be repeated again, It might be better to describe it as an incredible dream that can scarcely be believed. In terms of age, isn't the current Xianxia still a kid compared to us? Dongfang Ziu said with a bland smile. He has a strange and unusual personality. His temperament is domineering and imperious. His desire to never be controlled by another is drilled into his very bones, and he has never been willing to be anyone's subordinate. This kind of person, naturally, will not be driven by any principles of righteousness, nor will he be willing to shoulder any sort of duty. Yet he was the one who saved Blue Wind Nation, and today, he is the one who holds the future of the entire profound sky continent in his hand. Even though he will definitely not pay any mind to it, if he manages to get rid of Chunyuan Wenchen, the dark shadow that is looming over the profound sky continent today, then he will definitely become a legend that has never appeared in the history of the profound sky continent and may never ever be surpassed. UWWAH? Chunyuan Wenchen pressed a hand against the wound in his chest that was glowing with vermilion light. His face was so twisted with pain that it practically resembled an actual devil. But no matter how much he focused his energy, he could not close that wound. In fact, he could not even stop it from bleeding, and soon his entire palm was covered with reddish-black blood. Even though Xianxia's expression was incredibly confident, he did not know just how strong the current Chunyuan Wenchen had become, so it was not possible for him to have absolute confidence. So he planned to display feigned vulnerability first, so that he could use Chunyuan Wenchen's excessive confidence and arrogance to sneak in a strike and smash him fiercely with his sword. Even though the sword wound was very long, it was also very shallow. This kind of wound would normally not even faze a regular monarch, but because it had been inflicted by the heaven-smiting Devil Slayer sword, it was the most dreadful nightmare in the world to Chunyuan Wenchen's devil body. The sword wound, which glowed with vermilion light, not only caused him extreme pain, it also severely restricted his actions, as it also greatly affected the circulation of darkness profound energy. What was even more terrifying about this sword wound was that it was basically not possible to use darkness profound energy to close it. So even if Chunyuan Wenchen's profound strength was 10 times stronger, he could forget about being able to heal this wound quickly. In fact, being stronger would only cause this wound to linger on even longer. Xianxia, you actually dare to harm this sovereign's noble devil body. The pain being experienced by his body and the humiliation being experienced by his mind caused Chunyuan Wenchen's towering arrogance and light and easy manner to disappear completely. Under the influence of his darkness profound energy, his rage, violent urges, and killing intent had thoroughly erupted. Bang! Black light exploded outwards from Chunyuan Wenchen's body, and the already incredibly strong and vigorous aura of darkness suddenly explosively multiplied. A layer of dark black light circled and flowed around his devil body, lightning-like jet-black streaks of profound light flashing within. A dark pressure assaulted Xianxia as it instantly forced his body to retreat several places. His hands tightened their grip on the Devil Slayer sword as his expression grew cautious and alert. Ahaha, Xianxia, this sovereign is going to rip you to pieces. The wound on his chest was still bleeding, and he did not know when the pain would subside. Chunyuan Wenchen let out a hoarse roar as the black light around his body rippled restlessly. 3 black shadows abruptly shot out from his body before they morphed into 3 tentacles which squirmed towards Xianxia. The dark might contained by these 3 black tentacles was completely incomparable to what had been displayed before, and it was several times faster as well. Xianxia's body retreated swiftly, his arms turning as the heaven-smiting sword swept out in front of him, drawing an arc of vermilion light through the air. But the moment he had sent his sword out, his pupils faintly shrank, because he saw that hundreds of black sword beams had abruptly appeared behind those 3 black tentacles. Boom! The moment the 3 black tentacles came into contact with the Devil Slayer sword, they were immediately sliced apart, and they writhed about like 3 earthworms which had been cut into pieces, twisting in the air as they swiftly dissipated. During the instant it took for his sword to return to its previous position, hundreds of sword beams suddenly flew towards him as they let out icy whistles. The auras radiating from every single sword beam were not the least bit weaker than the black tentacles that had been blown away by Xianxia. Xianxia, die! Xianxia's eyes widened as he retreated at the fastest speed possible. However, it was basically impossible for him to be faster than those hundreds of black sword beams which could rend space apart. The moment the sword beams approached his body, His gaze turned dark, and he came to a fierce and sudden stop as he let out a low yell. Profound light burst out of every pore of Xianxia's body. His profound energy swelled explosively, as sealing cloud-locking sun was instantly activated, and the shapeless evil god barrier formed around him. All of the black sword beams thrust into the evil god barrier, the collision producing a horrendous noise which bore a hole through one's very heart and soul. Xianxia Wenshin's hands had arched into claws, and black light was dancing on his palms, and around his entire body as he violently urged those black sword beams onwards. Xianxia gritted his teeth tightly as he spread both hands out wide and desperately tried to reinforce and support the evil god barrier. The space, which had been fiercely rippling and shaking, had now suddenly turned completely still, as both men descended into a fierce deadlock as they stared at each other across the intervening distance of more than 300 meters. The black light in Xianxia Wenshin's hands was churning more and more violently with each passing second, and his expression was growing more and more warped as well. It was as if he could hardly believe that Xianxia could actually block his attack. "Xianxia, this sovereign will see just how much longer you can endure." "Heh!" Contrary to his expectations, Xianxia chuckled as he spat out his words with deliberate slowness. "It won't be for too long." As his voice fell, his gaze abruptly changed, and he let out a great shout which seemed to shake the very heavens themselves. H-A-H! As that great shout rang out, golden crow flames ignited and soared into the sky as Xianxia's profound strength, which had already swelled by several times, increased once more. The profound energy, which had been locked in a stalemate for a long time, was suddenly released with full force as it drove against the evil god barrier from within, causing it to burst apart. The black sword beams which had been driving against the evil god barrier released terrified wails as they were smashed far away. An incomparably enormous energy backlash fiercely lashed into the body of Xianxia Wenshin as he was urging the black sword beams forward, causing the expression on his face to change dramatically as his entire body shook fiercely. Xianxia suddenly sprang forward, the heaven-smiting sword shaking the air as it swept forward. In the blink of an eye, it destroyed all of the scattered sword beams. After that, Xianxia activated Star God's broken shadow as he rushed straight towards Xianxia Wenshin. A flame energy blade that was hundreds of meters long burst out from the heaven-smiting sword as it slashed towards the space that Xianxia Wenshin was standing in. Xianxia Wenshin's gaze became incredibly dark and heavy. He threw out a black curtain of light, smashing that flaming energy blade far away. After that, he abruptly stretched out a hand and clutched at the wound on his chest, and when he grabbed it, his hand became drenched in fresh blood. He stretched his blood-stained palm forward, and as the scarlet-black blood dripped down, a reddish-black profound formation slowly formed in the palm of his hands. It started to revolve slowly as it started to release a terrifying bloody light. "Xianxia, this is the heavenly devil blood refining formation that has been birthed using this sovereign's devil blood." After his black sword beams had been blocked, it was clear that Xianxia Wenshin had become even more irascible and enraged. "This sovereign had intended to leave you a whole corpse at first, but right now, this sovereign is going to refine you into a puddle of thick blood." As he howled those words hoarsely, Xianxia Wenshin flung his hand out wide as the blood-colored profound formation, which was only half a foot long, swiftly flew towards Xianxia. An extremely oppressive aura hurtled towards him, causing an extremely uneasy feeling to suddenly spring up in Xianxia's heart. He unwittingly retreated a few steps, but in that instant, the blood-colored formation that was flying through the air suddenly unfurled like a picture scroll, as it swelled to hundreds of times its previous size and instantly trapped Xianxia within. "Ha ha ha ha," Xianxia Wenshin said as he laughed wildly. "Within the blood-refining formation, you will immediately be turned into a puddle of watery blood, and even your soul will be refined out of existence, never to reincarnate. That is the end you get for enraging this sovereign." After he had been pulled into the heavenly devil blood-refining formation, the space around Xianxia had turned the color of blood. It was as if he had been plunged into a world of thick blood. Countless threads of dark and sinister energy swept at him from all around. These threads of energy seemed like they did not have any offensive properties, but Xianxia could clearly sense his blood starting to churn by itself, as his entire body felt a scorching heat, which was gradually growing more intense. Xianxia took a glance at his own palm as his eyes faintly narrowed. Phoenix flames and golden crow flames erupted simultaneously, the raging flame instantly repulsing all of the bloody energy as it burned and rampaged through every corner of the profound formation. Xianxia also flew into the air, all of the profound energy in his body surging. The heaven-smiting sword lashed out like a furious storm as it pounded heavily against that blood-colored profound formation. Boom, 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 boom. The vermilion greatsword, which weighed more than 1,000,000 kilograms, danced in Xianxia's hand like light and graceful blade of grass. After 100 sword strokes, the dense and bloody energy within the profound formation had been thrown into great disorder, and it even made several whining sounds which signaled its impending collapse. Boom. Following the last strike of Xianxia's sword, a huge hole was smashed through the profound formation as flames poured out of that gaping cavity. Following that, the escaping flames suddenly parted as Xianxia's figure flew out from within. As he flung out his sword, the images of the Sky Wolf and of the Phoenix simultaneously appeared behind his back. Phoenix Sky Wolf slash. What? Only a short 5 breaths had passed from the point the heavenly devil blood refining formation had engulfed Xianxia to the point where it had collapsed. Upon seeing this, Xianxia Wenshan's face was finally completely drained of color. Before this, he had been injured by Xianxia's sneak attack, so even though he had been enraged by it, he had thought that it was entirely due to him underestimating his enemy. He had definitely not thought that Xianxia had the ability to resist him. After all, he had only used 20% of his profound strength at that time. However, the black sword beams he had sent hurtling out in rage had been generated using all of his strength, fully intending to tear Xianxia into countless shreds. After that, the heavenly blood refining profound formation was sent out, and he had even used his devil blood to invoke it, so its might was incredibly powerful. But the black sword beams had been completely smashed aside by Xianxia, and even the heavenly blood refining profound formation had been swiftly broken apart by him. Under his irascible violence and his extreme rage, he had clearly used all of the power that he could currently muster. Yet, he was actually not able to suppress Xianxia at all. As he howled in fury, Xianxia Wenshan's black figure suddenly flashed as he dodged Xianxia's Phoenix Sky Wolf slash. But he did not follow it up with a counterattack. Instead, he let out a hoarse yell, "Why? How did your profound strength grow to this extent in just one short month? This sovereign has cultivated for 2,000 years, planned and prepared for 1,000 years, endured for 1,000 years. I've killed countless people, been soaked in oceans of blood, wasted so much time thinking up countless schemes. I've also endured heavens know how many risks, and in the end I even turned my own body into a puddle of blood before I obtained this power. But you..." Xianxia Wenshan huffed and puffed as he was overcome by rage, shock, befuddlement, and a strong discontentment and jealousy. Just how did you obtain such power in a short month? Where did you get this power from? Just what did you experience? Author's note. Goddammit, I'm so tired. All of you better not get used to this current rate of release. I'm truly exceptionally tired right now. The crucial point is that I've been receiving a rather excessive amount of encouragement recently, so I'd feel bad if I stopped releasing. Damn. I can't be like this. If I'm like this, it's really easy to become a fatty due to tiredness. Chapter 907, Devil Sword, Power of the Divine Profound. Though Xianxia Wenshan was one of the 4 sacred masters of the profound sky continent, when he was young, he was a person with mediocre talent. Furthermore, in a place like mighty heavenly sword region, his aptitude could not even be considered mediocre. If not because of the surname Xianxia he held, he would have been ousted out of mighty heavenly sword region like the progenitor of heavenly sword Villa due to his poor aptitude. Profound Sky Continent was a world where the profound reigned supreme, and a place like mighty heavenly sword region even had a clear distinction of levels. Levels of profound strength represented the absolute positions within the place. He was not ousted because of the Xianxia bloodline that ran in his veins, but similarly because he carried the Xianxia bloodline. His aptitude had become the shame of the Xianxia family. In mighty heavenly sword region, he was faced with countless cold looks, ridicule, scorn, humiliation, and even his biological parents were completely disappointed in him, turning their blind eyes to him. He had 6 biological brothers, yet not a single one of them would usually give him another glance. He had endured too much scorn and humiliation, and adding the hatred he harbored towards himself on one particular day, he finally snapped completely. Like an awakened demon, his lust for power madly grew mediocre talent. Then he would make up for it with desperateness. Others cultivated for 8 hours every day, while he cultivated for 16 hours and even up to 20 hours a day. In order to obtain even more training resources, he resorted to all possible means and had even maliciously harmed one clan member after another in secret, including 2 of his brothers. When his strength quickly grew, surpassing more and more people of the same age, he began to be acknowledged, praised, and even fawned over by some people. The heaven and earth difference in the treatment between the weak and the strong had pushed his pursuit for power to even further extremes, and actions in his pursuit for strength grew even wilder and more unscrupulous. On the day he finally reached the top of the sword region and became the sword master, he changed his own name to Xianxia. That he would one day challenge the heavens was the meaning behind the name, because he could no longer suppress his heart that lusted for power, especially when he found out about the existence of the realm of the gods in the ancient records. He had even turned demon-like in his pursuit of that world. In order to become Sword Master Xianxia, he assassinated his own elder brother. For the heavenly sin divine sword, he risked the danger of being sanctioned by the other 3 sacred grounds, exterminating the enormous eternal night royal family. In order to release the seal on the devil's sword, he traversed the entire profound sky continent, using several hundred years to search for countless mystical objects and mystical stones. For the final devil blood, he sealed Yi Mufeng's soul and chased after Yi Huang's reincarnation. For the day of the 13-star alignment, he bitterly waited for 1,000 years, for the mirror of samsara. He schemed against the other sacred grounds to launch a combined effort in attacking the illusory demon realm for the final seal of the devil's sword. He schemed against the entire profound sky continent. Finally, because one slight miscalculation, he gnashed his teeth and abandoned his own body and bloodline. Finally, he gained the power he had today and truly had the world in his grasp. Tenacity, obsession, patience, wits, maliciousness, ruthlessness, and adding a small bit of luck had made Xianxia what he was today. With the power he presently possessed, he had always believed that it was something he deserved and was the only one in the world. On the day he completely refined the devil blood, other than him, what was left of the profound sky continent were but mere ants. However, when his grand title as a heavenly sovereign had only just been born to the world, Xianxia suddenly popped out and displayed power that he could not suppress. And it had only been a short 1 month since the last time the 2 of them exchanged blows. The power of a devil god he had sacrificed his entire life to obtain had actually been caught up to by Xianxia in just a short 1 month. How could he possibly accept that? Xianxia said with a sunken voice, "A large half of my power comes from my master, while I obtain the other small half through gambling with my life. At the very least, I'm definitely not like you, who would exterminate an entire clan, throw the illusory demon realm into chaos and snatch away someone's body, all in order to satisfy your obsessive pursuit for power." "Master!" Strands of blood ripped apart within Xianxuan's eyes, as that peerlessly terrifying girl in a red dress surfaced in his mind. Even when he had become the heavenly sovereign, whenever he recalled Jasmine, fear would still strike his heart. He screamed out unwillingly, Why did this sovereign not encounter a master like that? Why? Not fair, this isn't fair. Allah! Envy was similarly a type of negative emotions. The moment his envy was stimulated by the dark, profound energy, it would grow even more intense like straws set on fire. With a loud roar, Xianxia made a frontal charge, pouncing towards Xianxia like a wild beast which had gone berserk. 2 enormous devil claws materialized at the same time, and they slashed towards Xianxia's body in a crisscrossing manner. Xianxia pushed off his feet, and his figure instantly flashed several dozen meters away. Xianxia, who struck empty air, stopped in his tracks, constantly trembled. However, he did not turn around. After a long while, the shivers of his body gradually weakened, until they stopped completely. Even his previously disarrayed, dark, profound energy had completely calmed down as well. Hey. Xianxia was laughing, however. It was no longer that furious, uncontrollable, wild laughter. Rather, his laughter was especially sullen. He slowly turned around. His pair of pitch-black eyes had actually regained their terrifying calm. "Xianxia, this sovereign almost overlooked something." He raised his eyes and focused on Xianxia as he sullenly said, "Your profound veins were crippled before you were 16 years old, and from then to now, you have at most cultivated for not more than 8 years. Not more than 8 years, heh? To possess your present level of strength in less than 8 years, just how many secrets are you hiding in your body? Xianxia Wenquan's smile grew even more sullen, and the eyes he was looking at Yun Qi with had suddenly grown several times more dangerous. So, Yun Qi returned a cold smile. In the end, the luck between two people can never be compared. To possess your present level of strength in just less than 8 years, you must possess the largest amount of luck in this continent as well. Unfortunately, the greatest tribulation you will ever face in this lifetime of yours is encountering this sovereign. This sovereign will completely sever your luck and life. After your death, all the secrets hidden within your body will naturally belong to this sovereign as well. Xianxia Wenquan's eyes instantly widened, exuding out a blazing and wild glow. Then all your luck will become the stepping stone for this sovereign to ascend to the other world. What a great shame. Even if I die, you shouldn't even think about snatching even the slightest bit of what I have in my body. Yun Qi had an expression that looked as if he was looking at an idiot. Is that so? Devil Wheel Blood Sacrifice, the forbidden technique of the Devil Way, which the Devil Sword had activated back then with Fen Juchen's energy to devour himself whole, flashed in Xianxia Wenquan's mind. The corners of his mouth curved up little by little. Though activating it a second time in such a short time frame was a little straining if he could obtain all of Yun Qi's powers, this madman would be willing to suffer even the largest of prices. Yun Qi, you being able to reach such a level has indeed astonished this sovereign greatly. Not only did you succeed in making this sovereign lose control of his emotions, you have even made this sovereign feel fear in that short moment. Xianxia Wenquan blandly said, as he slowly raised his hand, which was tainted with black light. However, it's time for everything to end. Crack. Pitch-black lightning sparks flashed from bottom to top as if they were dark lightning bolts that came from purgatory. A large, pitch-black sword was grasped in Xianxia Wenquan's hand, and at the sword hilt, a pair of devil eyes was exuding out a terrifying black light. In an instant, the dark aura on Xianxia Wenquan's body surged. The black light that was pitch-black in the first place had turned even deeper. What was even more terrifying was that the dark power on his body was quickly spreading at a horrifying rate. Under this dark might, the sky and earth quickly dimmed. The relentlessly tumbling ocean beneath, as if it was being pressed down by a mountain, turned incomparably still. When this dark might surged to a certain extent, it instead weakened all of a sudden. However, the sense of pressure it was exuding on Yun Qi did not weaken in the least, but had instead, all of a sudden, jolted his soul for a moment. Following after, under Xianxia Wenquan's aura, an intense sense of inferiority was quickly birthed within Yun Qi, and it was even increasing in intensity. This is, Xianxia Wenquan's profound aura is undergoing a qualitative change. Under the indescribably enormous, terrifying might, several hundreds of kilometers of the ocean turned dead silent. The sky turned sinisterly dark and space itself was no longer trembling in the slightest, as if it had been sealed. Under the sky-enveloping might, countless profound practitioners in Supreme Ocean Palace subconsciously knelt down from immense fear, not daring to stand after a long while. Under this might, it was as if they were facing the descent of a divine being. Yun Qi's body stiffened. He slightly gnashed his teeth and then took in a heavy breath. His chest, which had been stifled for a long while, finally heaved heavily for a moment, and that overbearing suppressive feeling slightly lightened up as well. Crack, crack, the sky had completely darkened. In the region the two of them were at especially, it was no longer possible to see one's fingers when stretched out. Even the ocean water had turned pitch black in color. Bolts of dark, profound lightning struck down, their battlefield looking as if it had turned into a dark purgatory. Do you see this? Do you feel it? This is this sovereign's true power. With the devil's sword in hand, with blood and soul interlinked, Xianxia Wenquan's strength had undergone far more than just an earth-shaking change. In the snow region of extreme ice back then, Xianxia Wenquan, without his devil's sword in hand, was defeated by the little demon empress, but the moment he revealed his devil sword, he instantly made a comeback against the little demon empress. Now the increase in Xianxia Wenquan's strength provided by the devil sword had grown even more evident. This is the power of the divine way, the power of the divine profound realm. In the profound sky continent, it was but a mere ancient legend. However, because of this sovereign, it has become a reality. Xianxia Wenquan slowly raised the eternal night devil sword. Its blade sliced open a long, black trail. That spatial tear, however, did not scatter even after a long while. This might be a little bad, Yun Qi softly muttered to himself. He had really never expected that Xianxia Wenquan's strength to have actually risen to such an astonishing extent. Though his heart was clenching, he did not reveal the slightest bit of fluster on his face. Instead, he said with considerable scorn, "Divine profound realm? Heh, such a joke. Amen, what do you mean?" Xianxia Wenshen's voice suddenly turned dark, as if he was furious at Yun Qi for doubting his power. "Though my power is still far from the divine profound realm, my understanding of the divine profound realm is much greater than yours, because my master's power is the true power of the divine way." Yun Qi's lips slowly curved into a sneer. "My master once said that, to truly step into the divine way, not only must there be a breakthrough in profound strength, one's vitality, soul energy, and spiritual sense must also reach a suitable realm before one can truly step into the divine profound realm. And the moment one enters the divine way, one's entire being will be reborn, allowing one to sense a different world and its laws, allowing one to possess a soul that can exist on its own, along with possessing an extremely long lifespan. As for you, though your profound strength has indeed reached the level at the divine profound realm, unfortunately, your lifespan and soul energy—" "Shut your mouth!" Xianxia Wenshen suddenly trembled, the dark light surrounding his body and the sword twisted intensely all of a sudden as well. You actually dare to doubt this sovereign's power of the divine way." "Oh," Yun Qi laughed. "Looking at how agitated you are, it seems you're very aware of it too. Though only possessing a thin amount of devil blood and a damaged devil soul in order to pursue power, you forcefully guided out all of their energy in a short time. This is exactly the biggest taboo of the profound way. Oh no, rather, such a short-sighted action is a taboo of any plane," Yun Qi coldly said. "Though you now wield an extremely strong power that might compare to the divine profound realm, this will be the peak of your power for your entire life. From today onwards, it will only weaken, and it will no longer increase even the slightest bit. As for your lifespan, most probably, you will only be able to live for up to 1,000 years at most, which can't even compare to an early stage overlord." "You—" The dark light surrounding Xianxia Wenshen's body had turned completely chaotic, and his entire body was even releasing an extremely intense air of hostility, because Yun Qi's words had ruthlessly torn through the most painful place under his arrogant and proud outer appearance. "Not to mention—" Yun Qi's words, however, did not stop there, as he shouted out even louder than before. "Your vitality and soul energy are even weakening instead of growing stronger, and how can your spiritual sense possibly improve as well? Zuer and I had previously concealed ourselves just 10 kilometers away from the Sea God Arena, yet you did not manage to sense us even to the very end. How can you possibly sense the existence of another world? Heh, evidently, that is just a pitiful imagination you're using to lie to yourself. This sovereign shall shred you into tens of thousands of pieces." Xianxia Wenshen wildly roared as he pounced towards Yun Qi while carrying a dark aura that could swirl up the entire sky and earth. The eternal night devil sword released a dim light that looked as if it had come from purgatory itself. Yun Qi's eyes narrowed. He did not dare to take it head-on and had instead quickly dodged, retreating far away. While he was at it, he did not forget to stab another ruthless blow. "Not only did you not step into the divine profound realm, you will definitely not be able to step into the true divine way your entire life." Chapter 908, The Frightening Strength of the Divine Way. In this world, Feng Zuer possessed the purest divine blood. In several years' time, she would definitely be able to break through to the divine profound realm and become the first person in the entire history of the profound sky continent to attain the divine way. After that, she would still have a limitless future and unlimited possibilities. And you, Xianxia Wenshen, not only would you be unable to break through to the divine profound realm, there is also no future for you either. Furthermore, since your bloodline and soul have already been completely corrupted, disrupted, and broken, after your death, you'll completely dissipate, and you'll be unable to reincarnate for all eternity. Taunting the opponent, making him angry, and lose his cool would sometimes be more effective than cutting off one of his arms. Yun Qi had obviously succeeded, as all his words had stabbed into Xianxia Wenshen's vitals. Xianxia Wenshen's entire body was trembling, and the black aura on his body became chaotic. It was obvious he was completely enraged. Just when Yun Qi was about to add fuel to the fire, he suddenly and accidentally saw that Xianxia Wenshen's trembling had started to calm down, and even the rage in his eyes had started to swiftly reduce. Hey, Xianxia Wenshen started to laugh, and his laugh was no longer ferocious, but instead extremely grim. This sovereign is already the world's heavenly sovereign, a devil god that possessed the strength of the divine way, How could I be angered by a mere mortal like you? Yun Qi opened his mouth and closed it. This Xianxia Wenchen went from calm to irritated, and back to suddenly calm again. Then, he became irritated due to his own words before he suddenly calmed down yet again. This constant, intense change of emotions was simply insane. Limitless future and unlimited possibilities. Heh, Xianxia Wenchen laughed grimly. You are the ones that truly have no future or possibilities, because today this sovereign will just exterminate all of you here. Boom. In the sky that was devoid of light, darkness had become like a sticky solid substance that gradually showering down while rumbling. In a world devoid of light, it seemed like a fierce darkness beast that was consuming the heavens and the earth. Yun Qi felt that the intense pressure was getting stronger at this time. His eyes pierced through the darkness, and he realized that the rumbling darkness was gathering behind Xianxia Wenchen's back. It gradually grew and became a more and more massive sea of darkness where the borders nearly could not be seen. The upper limit was the heavens while the lower borders were the vast seas. Yun Qi's eyebrows ferociously knitted. The profound energy in his entire body surged, and the heaven-smiting sword quickly swept out in front of him. The area where Supreme Ocean Palace stood had completely darkened, and even with the eye power of monarchs, they still could not see clearly what lay 3 meters beyond them. Feng Zuer swept her snowy hands and phoenix flames burned in the skies, returning some light to the world. What kind of power is this? This frightening change in the heavens and the earth. This frightening pressure that was far more frightening than hell in their minds. They didn't dare to imagine that there would be such a powerful existence in this world, and this strength had actually come from someone they knew. Yun Qi, this sovereign wants to see how are you still going to struggle before the strength of the devil god. Boom. The eternal night devil sword pierced forward. With a simple action, a boundless sea of darkness that covered the heavens and the earth enveloped Yun Qi, leaving him no escape routes. SSS! Yun Qi inhaled strongly, and all the profound energy within his body began to circulate without restraint. Other than the abnormal existence that was Jasmine, this was the heaviest pressure and most frightening strength that he had ever encountered in his life. It was different compared to all the strength that he had withstood in the profound sky continent, a complete difference in terms of level and realm. Xianxia Wenchen could never truly enter the divine way. These were not empty words. Because even when he died, he could never attain the longevity, soul power, and spiritual sense of the true divine way. However, simply in terms of profound strength, he was indeed in the divine profound realm. The divine profound realm that had never before existed within the profound sky continent. Against strength at that level, Yun Qi had absolutely no chance of winning. However, if it were against Xianxia Wenchen, Yun Qi fiercely stepped forward. The heaven-smiting sword swung out with intensity, and the golden crow flames surged several hundred meters into the air, forming a sea of scarlet flames which strongly chased away the darkness. Boom! The sea of darkness collided strongly with the fierce flames in the air. In an instant, the dark sky split into 2 distinct, separated worlds. The higher part was the sticky and dense darkness, while the lower part was scorching hot flames that made it seem as though a golden sun was currently rising. The shine from the flames shone downward and formed beautiful rays on the surface of the sea. That is... At the northern part where the red and black of the skies met, it was as though the image depicted was that of doomsday. Even those profound practitioners who were withstanding the devilish poison looked up with all their might towards the north, unwilling to miss this image. This was an image that was more shocking than any natural disaster, and they would definitely only encounter it once in their lives, and there would never be a second time. Anyone could tell that darkness was Xianxia Wenchen's strength, while the scarlet flames were Yun Qi's strength. Although they were hundreds of kilometers away, they could still clearly tell the developments of the battle. Big brother Yun, good luck! Both of Feng Zuer's arms gripped onto the corner of her dress tightly as her heart could not settle down. The 2 worlds remained in a stalemate for only a couple of breaths of time before the darkness suddenly descended, fiercely suppressing the sea of flames. When the suppression began, it gradually became more and more intense, and the light from the flames became more and more dim. The surging sea of flames seemed as though it was a sun that had been consumed by dark clouds, and in an instant, half of it had already disappeared. Big brother Yun, Feng Zuer screamed, shocked as both her hands held her chest tightly. Jasmine had told Yun Qi before that if he viewed the elementary profound realm to the sovereign profound realm as one huge realm, then the divine profound realm was a whole different realm. When under extreme states, Yun Qi could battle the Tyrant Profound Realm with strength of the Sky Profound Realm. He could battle the Sovereign Profound Realm with strength of the Tyrant Profound Realm. When he was within the Tyrant Profound Realm, he could already defeat an extreme powerhouse that was Huangji Wuyu. All this while, his strength was capable of transcending one or even two profound realms. However, although the Sovereign Profound Realm and the Divine Profound Realm seemed like they were only one realm apart, the gap between the two was far too massive. It was so massive that in the history of profound Sky Continent, although there were countless overlords and countless monarchs, there had never been a profound god before. At this time, Yun Qi, who had already stepped into the Sovereign Profound Realm, was facing off against the first person within the history of the profound Sky Continent to break through the bottleneck of the Sovereign Profound Realm, possessing the strength of the Divine Way. He was also personally witnessing just how massive the gap between the two realms was. The golden crow flames that he ignited with all his might had only lasted a mere 5 seconds before they got defeated by the might of Xunyuan Wenshin's strength of the Divine Way. There was a pressure that seemed as though the heavens were collapsing. Yun Qi's entire body trembled, and the sea of flames swiftly fell along with his body. When he neared the surface of the ocean, the golden crow flames on his body extinguished, and there was no light once again between heaven and earth. The darkness that shrouded the skies seemed like the mouth of a devil as it rolled and consumed Yun Qi within it. Ha 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 ha! Xunyuan Wenshin let out a heaven-shaking, hysterical laughter. Yun Qi, are you seeing this? This is the strength of a devil god. No matter how much luck you possess, even if you were to make a massive improvement, it would all be meaningless. In front of the devil god's strength, you're still a mere ant. The darkness devil aura began to roll with even more intensity, gradually and completely suppressing Yun Qi's aura. Suddenly, a sharp screeching noise was heard, and a vermilion sword glow suddenly shot towards the sky. The dense darkness was being split apart layer by layer, and the sword tip pierced towards Xunyuan Wenshin. Wherever the sword tip went, it swept up a twisting tornado. Amen! Xunyuan Wenshin's hysterical laugh was suddenly cut off. The world of darkness had already been pierced from the bottom to the top by the heaven-smiting Devil Slayer sword. The sword tip that was giving off a vermilion glow was going towards his abdomen. Even though it had pierced through the entire world of darkness, the might of the sword still did not reduce in the slightest. It's that despicable sword again, Xunyuan Wenshin howled and suddenly pulled the Eternal Night Devil sword downwards. Clank! This was the first time Yun Qi had collided head-on with the strength of the Divine Way. From when his flames had been completely suppressed, he had already felt how frightening the strength of the Divine Way was. When they were about to cross swords, he had already sufficiently prepared himself. However, when their swords collided, Yun Qi's entire body still trembled. Both his arms were numb and he blacked out. In that instant, his consciousness had actually been dispersed. Yun Qi snorted dully and his body spun backwards. Continue struggling. Only when you struggle long enough will you feel more despair. All the black aura regathered behind Xunyuan Wenshin, and he stabbed his sword towards Yun Qi. The darkness flowed along with the strike. Yun Qi, who was flying backwards, forcefully stabilized his balance with a distorted stance. The profound aura on him surged and the flames reignited. Facing a sword of Xunyuan Wenshin who was in his killing stance, not only did Yun Qi not retreat or dodge, he swung his sword out instead. The space surrounding the sword shattered swiftly like glass, and the boundless energy fused with the scorching divine flames. The atmosphere distorted and burned. Boom! The heaven-smiting Devil Slayer sword and the Eternal Night Devil sword pierced through the air at the same time, heavily clashing. In an instant, the world lost all sound before it fiercely erupted once again, as the fragile atmosphere let out a long, screeching noise, and collapsed for several dozen kilometers. The surrounding flames and darkness were all forcefully separated, and thousands of massive waves swept across 50 kilometers of sea. UWHHHH? Supreme Ocean Palace was filled with numerous nervous cries as the entire Ocean Palace was trembling strongly, as though it could completely collapse at any time. A long streak of blood shot out from Yun Qi's mouth. Both his arms were devoid of feeling, and he was sent flying like a crashing meteor. However, Xunyuan Wenshin's sword stance still could not be completely withstood. Numerous darkness sword auras lashed at his body, destroying his outerwear while adding numerous deep streaks of blood to his body. Xunyuan Wenshin, on the other hand, had only been knocked back by less than 30 meters. Only when he was nearing the surface of the ocean nearby had Yun Qi finally stopped. His entire body was in pain, and the areas that were directly attacked by the sword aura were in excruciating pain. His two arms that had withstood that frightening strength were exuding streaks of blood. Within the profound sky continent, the only person that could withstand a blow from Xianxia Wenshan would be Xianqi. If it were anyone else, even if they possessed similar strength to Xianqi, their arms would undoubtedly be shattered. Slowly lifting up the heaven-smiting sword again, the golden crow flames on his body ignited once more as his profound energy surged alongside it. Although there were many stains of blood on Xianqi's entire body now, and he had started to pant slightly, his resurged strength was no weaker than before. This Xianxia Wenshan. At this point, Xianqi was already certain that although Xianxia Wenshan would never possibly obtain the longevity and spiritual sense of the divine way, his frightening strength was indeed truly within the divine profound realm. The reason why there was such a massive gap between the sovereign profound realm and the divine profound realm was because anyone under the divine profound realm, no matter how strong, was still just a human. When one stepped into the divine profound realm, he would have transcended the mortal realm and become a true god among humans. Xianqi's previous opponents, no matter how strong they were still humans. Even the Moon Slaughter Devil Sovereign's strength had already deteriorated to the level of humans. However, today, he was relying on his mortal strength to fight against someone who possessed the strength of the divine way. Not just that, this was a battle that had to be won no matter what. Chapter 909, Absolute Sword of No Return. Oh, you actually only suffered minor injuries. Looking at Xianqi's condition, deep astonishment flashed within Xianxia Wenshan's pitch-black eyes. However, he immediately flashed a cold smile right after. Very good, this sovereign shall enjoy your struggles to the fullest. Xianxia Wenshan's voice turned arrogant. The moment he released the power of the divine way, Xianqi's strength could no longer suppress him in the slightest. He let out a loud laugh as the eternal night devil sword struck down. A dark sword beam that was close to 300 meters in width swept across space, slashing towards Xianqi. Xianqi focused his gaze as he flew upwards, leaping up to 3 kilometers in height. The black light flashed past beneath his feet, and a dark divide was instantly sliced across the ocean below. With his 2 arms raised high, he locked onto Xianxia Wenshan's position. Flames ignited around the blade of the sword, and the roar of the Sky Wolf resounded through the vast ocean. Phoenix Sky Wolf slash! Screech. Space was torn apart like cotton, and even the dense dark energy was ruthlessly chiseled away. Crossing several kilometers of space in an instant, the image of the Sky Wolf bombarded straight towards Xianxia Wenshan's chest. HMPH, in the face of this sovereign's devil god power, this bit of strength is but a mere joke. Xianxia Wenshan did not use his sword. Instead, he stretched out his hand, and a mass of black light smashed into the blazing image of the Sky Wolf. Amidst the sudden explosions of wailing noises, the orbit of the blazing image of the Sky Wolf twisted a great extent and swept by Xianxia Wenshan's side. Then, it exploded behind Xianxia Wenshan, and the energy tornadoes that exploded forth were quickly engulfed by the darkness. Xianqi, did you see that? This is the power of the divine way. This is the difference between you and this sovereign. Facing Xianqi, Xianxia Wenshan stretched out 3 fingers that were tainted with a black glow. 30 breaths. Within 30 breaths, this sovereign will obliterate you into dark ashes. Even if you use the primordial profound arc, don't even think of escaping from this sovereign's hands. And then, that little phoenix will be next. The so-called limitless possibilities and future you spoke of are but mere jokes in the eyes of this sovereign. Darkness swirled, and Xianxia Wenshan swept up an illusory shadow within the darkness as he quickly approached Xianqi. The eternal night devil's sword once again slashed out, striking out with a strange 6-pointed sword light. The moment it appeared right before Xianqi's body, it had already turned into an enormous dark sword formation, causing Xianqi's soul to experience immense, piercing pain. Conflict flashed past Xianqi's face. In the end, he did not choose to receive it head-on and instead speedily flashed away with Star God's broken shadow, completely dodging the sword formation. Xianxia Wenshan instantly relocked onto his position as well and pierced out a second sword strike that tore through space like a surging lightning bolt. Xianqi's figure flashed again, shattering out 5 afterimages 150 meters away. Boom, boom, crack. Xianxia Wenshan threw out 5 sword strikes consecutively, and all had amounted to nothing under Xianqi's strain, an unpredictable Star God's broken shadow. The strongest aspect of the evil god arts. Yun Qi's core profound arts, was its berserk profound energy, and the heavy sword in his hands could even allow his destructive power to reach extreme levels. Thus, a head-on clash had never been something he was afraid of. Usually, the star god's broken shadow was mostly used to supplement the drawbacks of his profound movement skills, preventing his opponent from escaping and forcing his opponent to exchange blows with him head-on. This was the first time he had consecutively used the star god's broken shadow to avoid a head-on clash with his opponent. Because with just the previous 2 sword strikes, he had already taken considerable damage. The terror of the power of the divine way had greatly surpassed his expectations. Fleeing, Xuanyun Wenshin's face turned ferocious. This sovereign wants to see how you're going to escape. Xuanyun Wenshin's hand suddenly reached out, and he fiercely grasped the space Yun Qi was positioned in. In an instant, several hundreds of kilometers of space surrounding Yun Qi had completely distorted, and amidst the distortion, they gathered towards Yun Qi's position. Yun Qi's expression instantly changed, because he clearly felt that space itself was tightening, and all his body parts felt as if they were being pressed under a tremendously heavy iron plate. Even his breathing was being severely obstructed. He hurriedly wanted to move away, but his body had only managed to sway a little before the surrounding space fiercely shrank again. The suppressive forces on his body suddenly grew by several times, preventing him from even raising his arm for a moment. This is. At this sovereign's realm, space is already this frail and weak. Xuanyun Wenshin retracted his hand and leisurely approached him. This is the intervention towards space by the power of the divine way, an almighty power that you will never have the chance to make contact with in your entire lifetime. Allow this sovereign to witness if you will beg while wagging your tail like those lowly ants at the moment of despair. Ha 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 ha. Facing Yun Qi, who was already a turtle in an urn, Xuanyun Wenshin let out an arrogant laugh. The eternal night devil sword swung out, and a pitch-black sword beam that was about 10 meters long pierced towards the space-sealed Yun Qi, carrying the peerlessly terrifying power of the divine way. Oog! Yun Qi groaned as he gnashed his teeth, struggling with all his might. This seal was completely different from the darkness prison which Xuanyun Wenshin used back then. Darkness prison used darkness devil energy to forcefully restrict the target's movement abilities. But the one exerted on Yun Qi was a spatial seal executed by interfering with space purely through immense strength. Spatial seals were things which Yun Qi had experienced before, but he had never experienced such a terrifying spatial seal. The profound energy in his entire body wildly poured out, yet he had only managed to slightly shift his body. However, the dark sword beam had already pierced through space, striking straight into his chest. Poof! Even the heaven-smiting Devil Slayer sword could not completely disperse the dark sword beam which originated from the eternal Night Devil sword as it ruthlessly smashed into Yun Qi's chest. Amidst of the burst of black light, a large cloud of bloody mist exploded forth, instantly dyeing Yun Qi's upper body red. A painful groan flowed out of Yun Qi's mouth as well. Amen. Xuanyun Wenshin, however, narrowed his eyes because this sword strike, a sword strike that carried the power of the divine way, had clearly struck straight onto Yun Qi's chest, yet it did not penetrate his body. That's truly a tenacious body, Xuanyun Wenshin slowly crooned. Though his eyes carried a playful vibe, his heart was filled with lasting shock and disbelief, because he was very certain that even if his own body was struck head-on like this by that sword beam, it would have definitely been pierced through as well. Could Yun Qi's body have actually surpassed this sovereign's devil physique? That's definitely impossible. Then what about this strike? Xuanyun Wenshin flashed out a ferocious smile of a vile devil from the corner of his lips. A pitch-black sword beam that was close to several hundreds of meters long suddenly appeared above the eternal night devil sword. Shortly after, the sword beam had instead began to quickly shrink, shrinking from several hundreds of meters to merely a length of 2 feet. HSSS, die! The space around the pitch-black sword beam emitted a wailing howl, as if it was trembling due to this sword beam which held extremely terrifying power. Bang! The space around the eternal night devil sword completely exploded apart, shattering into countless spatial fragments. The sword beam that had a deeper black than the abyss itself tore through the shattered space and flew straight towards Yun Qi's chest with the aura of a death god. Seemingly at the same instant, brilliant golden flames suddenly erupted from Yun Qi's body. Yellow Springs ashes! Boom, 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 the golden crow flames wildly erupted with Yun Qi's body as the center, and with every booming noise, another layer of flames would explode outwards. The space that was sealed and intensely shrunk under Xianxia Wenquan's profound energy was instantly melted through in a forceful manner. After being penetrated by more than 20 layers of flames, even the sword beam that was flying towards Yun Qi had been completely obliterated at a distance of several meters away from Yun Qi's chest. Oh, Xianxia Wenquan's eyes once again widened. Right after, he let out crazed roar that was either from anger or excitement. Good! Struggle just like that! Struggle with all your might! Facing the terrifying flames that were wildly erupting, Xianxia Wenquan had instead taken them head-on amidst his crazed roars. All the dark energy behind his body had instantly gathered onto the Eternal Night Devil Sword. Then, following the swing of the Eternal Night Devil Sword, an enormous arc of dark light materialized, smashing towards the golden crow flames that were still spreading at an immense speed. Weewum, the exploding golden crow flames were instantly sliced apart by the arc of dark light. Looking from afar, it looked as if a blazing sun had been ruthlessly sliced into two right at the center. Yun Qi, who had just escaped the spatial seal and released the yellow spring's ashes with all his might, had yet to catch his breath when an overwhelmingly heavy pressure descended from the sky. Yun Qi fiercely gnashed his teeth as he forcefully circulated the profound energy in his body that was already in a state of utter chaos. Amidst his loud roar, the heaven-smiting sword was smashed upwards with all his might, destroying sky, decimating earth. The vermilion heavy sword aura surged upwards, ruthlessly smashing onto the arc of dark light originated from the Eternal Night Devil Sword. The energy of the arc of dark light instantly weakened, but it was still not something that Yun Qi could block with a sword strike. He hastily dished out, so the energy of the heavy sword dispersed after a short stalemate. Yun Qi groaned as he was sent flying far away like a withered leaf being swirled up by a hurricane. It seems this is the limit of your struggle. This time, thoroughly die then. Xianxia Wenquan slowly raised his arm. A formless sword intent reverberated silently between heaven and earth, and then he gently pushed out the Eternal Night Devil Sword. The world was suddenly silent for a single moment. All the colors, sounds, and objects completely froze. Between the heaven and the earth, merely a single enormous dark sword that seemed as if it had come from the depths of purgatory was piercing through the air. The pitch-black trail it left behind looked as if the entire sky had been sliced apart. Sword of no return. An extreme sword technique that could only be activated after attaining the highest realm of the heavens, might absolute sword. It was also the single sword move at the apex Xianxia Wenquan attained after sacrificing his entire life in the way of the sword. Ever since the day he cultivated it, there had never been anyone who could dodge this sword strike. This sword strike was simply too fast, to the point where even Yun Qi was unable to catch a hint of its tracks. However, the ice-cold sensation of an incoming life-threatening blow ruthlessly stabbed his soul. His body was a step faster than his consciousness, and seemed to have instinctively expanded the evil god's barrier. Crack! The instant the evil god's barrier expanded, the Eternal Night Devil Sword smashed onto the evil god's barrier, as if it had flown out from the cracks in the dimensional rift. As though he had been struck by lightning, Yun Qi's body, which was in a state of flying backwards in the first place, was instantly sent plummeting down like a falling meteorite. In an instant, he was sent flying several dozens of kilometers away. HSS! Yun Qi's teeth were close to shattering from his gnashing as the energy in his entire body was gathered onto the evil god's barrier. All the injuries on his body had all completely burst as well. What looked like a simple sword strike actually carried a never-before-seen terrifying strength. The moment it smashed onto the evil god's barrier, Yun Qi could feel as if the bones in his entire body were about to completely scatter away. In an instant, in merely that short, neglectable instant, he had already been sent flying 20 to 30 kilometers away. It was also in that one moment that countless cracks surfaced on the evil god's barrier, residing at the very brink of collapsing. Furthermore, the Eternal Night Devil Sword that was right before his eyes had already ruthlessly stabbed into the barrier, and was not even 5 inches from his chest. Not to mention it was still closing in quickly. This was the sword strike of the #1 swordsman in the profound sky continent. Furthermore, it was his ultimate sword strike infused with the power of the divine way. Being able to hold it back for this single instant with the power of a mortal was already enough to go down in history as a miracle in the profound sky continent. And in the next instant, he could not possibly hold it back, no matter what. Rumbling heaven! Qi fiercely gnashed his teeth and drops of blood from his mouth scattered into the air as the fourth gate of the evil god arts opened. Bang! His profound energy surged and his profound aura grew. The defensive power of the evil god's barrier instantly rose in strength, and then it immediately erupted right after. And at this moment, Qi had already been sent flying for almost 50 kilometers by the eternal Night Devil sword. Supreme Ocean Palace was now less than 5 kilometers behind him. Finally, the eternal Night Devil sword was barely shaken off by the shattering of the evil god's barrier. A long streak of blood sprinkled across the sky as Qi fell straight into the ocean. And at this distance, it was already enough for the countless experts in Supreme Ocean Palace to clearly witness this scene. "Big Brother Yun!" With her beautiful face paling, Feng Zuer cried out. No longer caring about anything else, phoenix flames ignited all around her body, and she flew straight northwards. In a fluster, Feng Zhuqiu and Feng Tianwei wanted to obstruct her, but they had only managed to grasp empty air. However, before she had yet to fly out of the region of the Ocean Palace, Qi's voice suddenly resounded next to her ears. "Zuer, no need to worry about me. Protect Yuanba and the rest." Though the voice was a little frail and painful, it was especially calm. Feng Zuer slowly came to a halt, and she stared blankly at the vast ocean which had swallowed Qi for a long while. The eternal Night Devil sword drew a long streak of black shadow in the sky and then flew back into Xianxia Wenquan's hands. He had actually managed to directly block it. Xianxia Wenquan muttered to himself with narrowed eyes and then let out a sinister laugh. It seems he used some sort of a final trump card, but he should be more or less dead by now. The moment his voice fell, he suddenly sensed Qi's aura coming from the depths of the ocean, and it was even moving further and further away. Amen, Xianxia Wenquan's black eyes fiercely narrowed. He actually still has reserves, wanting to flee? This sovereign wants to see just where you're fleeing to. Xianxia Wenquan's body descended, sinking into the boundless ocean as he chased after Qi's aura. Within the vast ocean depths, where the ends could not be seen, it was hard to determine one's location, and it was even harder to clearly discern one's direction. Qi kept the heaven-smiting sword and pressed his hand onto his chest, quickly stabilizing his injuries. His body split apart the ice-cold ocean water as he fled further into the ocean depths at his fastest speed. Behind him, Xianxia Wenquan's aura suddenly enveloped downward and was furthermore approaching him at high speed. His loud, arrogant laughter had even penetrated through the ocean water and resounded in his ears. "Qi, flee with all your might, flee as desperately as you can. However, even if you flee to the end of the world, don't even think about escaping from this sovereign's hands." Qi did not turn back and once again sped up. As if his entire body had turned into a sharp sword, he sliced apart the heavy obstruction of the ocean water and quickly charged into the deeper regions of the ocean. Behind him was Xianxia Wenquan's approaching heavy and sinister dark aura. When Xianxia Wenquan had already caught up to just half a kilometer distance between them, the two had already sunk 30 kilometers below the ocean's surface. 30 kilometers into the deep ocean, the surroundings were completely enveloped in darkness without the slightest strand of light. The water pressure in this place was enough to instantly crush a profound practitioner into flesh pulp. It was a peerlessly terrifying death zone. And right here, Qi, who had been fleeing deeper into the ocean, suddenly stopped. The moment his body turned around, a dense dark light flashed within his eyes for an instant. The corners of his mouth, which were still slowly seeping out blood, had actually curved up, revealing a strange, light smile. Chapter 910, Vicious Battle in the Ocean Depths, 1. Qi, is he dead? A divine phoenix sect elder asked with an expression of shock and fear on his face. At first, they had seen the darkness completely extinguishing Qi's flames, and then they had all witnessed Xianxia Wenquan's sword of no return explode against Qi, before seeing Qi fall into the ocean region while spraying blood all over the place. So even if he was not dead, he was definitely already heavily wounded. On the contrary, Xianxia Wenquan, who had raced over in hot pursuit, looked completely fine besides the smear of blood across his chest, and his aura was even more terrifying than it had been initially. Even if he isn't dead yet, he will definitely be dead in a short while. I would advise that you lot take care of yourselves first. A dark voice filled with implied meaning suddenly rang out in the air, causing everyone's bodies to tremble. After Qi and Xianxia Wenquan had fallen into the deep ocean, the world had finally calmed down again. Even the darkness which covered the sky had begun to swiftly dissipate. Yimeixi and Xunyuanbo slowly sauntered over as a gaggle of people. Belonging to Sun Moon Divine Hall and Mighty Heavenly Sword region, followed along behind them. Their eyes and their expressions were clearly overcast and carried promises of cruel sport and killing intent. Yimeixi, what do you think you're— Zai Jai immediately sensed that the situation had taken a turn for the worse. However, the devilish poison had already seeped into his body, so just speaking already caused him to experience so much agony that he wished he was dead, and he was nearly unable to stand at all. What are we going to do? Could it be that the wise and far-sighted Mr. Zai cannot guess what is coming next? Yimeixi said as he took a single step forward. His eyes flashed with a cold light, and he already grasped an emerald green jade longsword in his hand before slowly pointing it towards Zai Jai. Yimeixi, you dare! Absolute Monarch Sanctuary's spiritual master Nine Lamentations rebuked him in fury. He forced himself to his feet, but just as his profound energy was about to swell up, he once again sank to his knees in agony. Just look at your current situation. How pathetic and pitiable you lot are. Yimeixi's expression was rather malevolent and sinister. After he had lost an arm to the little demon empress and had been utterly defeated by Xunyuan Wenshin, his personality had become warped. When he looked at the miserable and pitiful states of the gathered members of Absolute Monarch Sanctuary and Supreme Ocean Palace who were afflicted with the devilish poison, his heart surged with joy and satisfaction, because these people were even more miserable and pitiable than he was, despite him losing an arm. This spectacle is beyond pitiful. Right now, even if it was I alone, I would still able to easily slaughter Absolute Monarch Sanctuary's Saint Emperor and 12 spiritual masters, ha 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 ha. Xunyuanbo said as he laughed wildly. Even though I don't know how that punk Yunqi suddenly became so powerful. No matter how strong his profound strength has become, how can it compare with the Heavenly Sovereign who has already stepped into the way of the divine? You all personally witnessed it as well. His power was as insignificant as an ant's in front of the Heavenly Sovereign. But to think that you bunch of idiots actually hoped that Yunqi could defeat the Heavenly Sovereign. That is simply an enormous joke. The atmosphere in Supreme Ocean Palace, which had become exceptionally defeatist and fatalistic, turned cold in an instant. Those powers from the 7 nations instantly understood what Sun Moon Divine Hall and Mighty Heavenly Sword region intended to do, so they chose to hurriedly hide somewhere far away. They shivered in fear, and not a single one of them dared to look at the scene in front of them. Yimeixi, Xunyuanbo. Huangji Wuyu struggled to his feet as well. His heavy wounds were exacerbated by the devilish poison, causing every single part of his body to spasm and contort in pain. He tightened his hand into a fist, the primal chaos heavenly ruler appearing in his grasp. Do you think the likes of you are worthy enough to slay me, Huangji Wuyu? Huangji Wuyu let out a low yell as the primal chaos heavenly ruler flew out of his hand. At nearly the same instant, an expression of intense agony flashed across his face, and he knelt to the ground, his entire body trembling. After that, Huangji Wuyu could no longer muster the power to stand up again. In his current condition, Huangji Wuyu could not even muster 10% of the profound energy he could normally summon. Xunyuanbo took a step forward, his sword smashing against the primal chaos heavenly ruler. With a huge clang, the primal chaos heavenly ruler was thrown far away by the impact, but the same impact only pushed Xunyuanbo 3 steps backwards. He tossed his head backwards as he let out a wild laugh filled with glee. Ha 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 ha. So it turns out that the Saint Emperor of Absolute Monarch Sanctuary only amounts to this. Sect Master Yi, I hope that you can withdraw and allow me to experience just what it feels like to personally end the life of the profound Sky Continent's #1 person in the profound way. If it was like before, as an elder of Mighty Heavenly Sword region, even if Xunyuanbo was not reverential and respectful to Huangji Wuyu and Yimeixi, he would still definitely not dare to act in a rash manner in front of them. But today, not only did he dare to act in such an arrogantly wanton and flagrant manner in front of Huangji Wuyu, he astonishingly even dared to order Yimeixi about. He gave a sinister laugh as his sword suddenly thrust towards Huangji Wuyu's chest. It was completely and utterly an attack that was made with no mercy, a killing thrust meant to reap a life. As he let out a loud shout, Feng Zhuqiu swooped down on Xunyuanbo like a fierce eagle, his right hand which blazed with phoenix fire smashing against Xunyuanbo's sword. Xunyuanbo's expression underwent a dramatic change as he hurriedly retreated. Just as Feng Zhuqiu was about to give chase, A cold light flashed in front of him as Yimeixi appeared like a ghost between the two people. Bang! Ugh! Feng Zhuqiu gave a dull snort as he was blasted away by the impact. When he landed on the ground, he retreated more than 10 steps before being supported by Feng Tianwei. His body fiercely swayed and his face had gone as white as a sheet. It was clear that he had sustained internal injuries. Divine Phoenix Sect, don't be too anxious. It will be your turn soon enough, Yimeixi said in a deep and low voice. Attack, you don't need to hold back. These people are already bereft of the ability to fight back. Slaughter all of them. Xianxia, who had been sent flying by Feng Zhuqiu, roared in a flustered and exasperated voice. Their corpses will be the gift that we present to our heavenly sovereign as tribute to celebrate his apotheosis. After Xianxia had given that order, all the members of Mighty Heavenly Sword Region and Sun Moon Divine Hall swiftly rushed forward, their profound energy and killing intent shaking the Sea God Arena that was already on the verge of collapse. The gathered members of Absolute Monarch Sanctuary and Supreme Ocean Palace were so furious that their eye sockets threatened to fracture. If one were to talk about combined strength, Sun Moon Divine Hall and Mighty Heavenly Sword Region would definitely not be able to stand up to Absolute Monarch Sanctuary and Supreme Ocean Palace. But right now, their bodies had been afflicted by a devilish poison, and of the two sacred masters on their side, one had sustained serious injuries, and the other was on the verge of death. Right now, they could forget about even thinking about resisting, because they had basically been reduced to a flock of sacrificial lambs who did not even have the power to fight back. As for the Divine Phoenix Sect, even if the devilish poison had been purged from their bodies, they were basically not able to stand up to or obstruct the two sacred grounds, so the fate of complete and total annihilation awaited them as well. Yimeixi, Xianxia, the both of you will definitely not die a good death, Spiritual Master Bitter Agony roared. He summoned forth all of the profound strength that he could muster as he prepared to make his last stand. I may not know how I'm going to die, but I do know that you are about to die right now. Xianxia rushed to the front as he thrust his sword towards Spiritual Master Bitter Agony. Behind him, the elders and disciples of Sun Moon Divine Hall and Mighty Heavenly Sword Region had all rushed forward as well. SCRE. Just as everyone was about to fall into the depths of despair, a phoenix cry pierced the blue dome of heaven as the world suddenly turned red. After that, the image of a gigantic phoenix appeared in the sky like a divine spirit that had descended onto this mortal plane as it loftily circled in the air. In an instant, the entire world became immersed in flames which seemed to scorch the sky. It was as if all the fire energy in the world had been drawn in by this gigantic phoenix image as it soared through the sky, radiating a might that was sufficient to bring about the end of the world. What is that? The members of Sun Moon Divine Hall and Mighty Heavenly Sword Region all ground to a halt. The peerlessly dreadful suppressive might caused all of their bodies to shake uncontrollably. Even the gathered members of the Divine Phoenix Sect were letting out incredibly shocked cries of astonishment as they all looked up at the phoenix image which soared in the sky. That gigantic phoenix image caused them to all vaguely feel like that they had witnessed the descent of their phoenix god. The returned Feng Zhuo slowly descended from the sky, her beautiful eyes flashing with a suppressive might and awe-inspiring dignity which caused even Feng Zhuqiu to stop breathing. All of you should withdraw right now. If anyone takes a further step forward, that person will be turned into ashes for all time. The suppressive might radiated by the phoenix spirit above them was so great that it caused their very souls to tremble. However, since none of them had personally witnessed the vicious duel she had fought with Xianxia Wenshin just a month ago, even if one were to beat them to death, none of them would believe that the current Feng Zhuo's power had already completely surpassed that of a sacred master's. Even though Xianxia heart was shaking uncontrollably in fear, with the power of two sacred grounds arrayed behind him, he did not even view Feng Zhuqiu as a threat, much less Feng Zhuo. He let out a wild laugh which was colored with cruel amusement. Ah, such a pitiful little phoenix. The sight of you struggling is simply too adorable and lovable. Oh no, actually pitiable would be a more fitting description. Come, let me see just how you're going to burn us into ashes. What has everyone stopped for? Advance. Kill everyone, don't spare a single one of them. Their lives will be the proof of your loyalty to the Heavenly Sovereign. Attack, Yimeixi said in a dark and heavy voice. A chorus of assent rang out from the gathered members of Mighty Heavenly Sword Region and Sun Moon Divine Hall. The feet that had ground to a temporary halt once again started moving forward as a dense and fierce killing intent rigidly engulfed the members of Absolute Monarch Sanctuary and Supreme Ocean Palace. Feng Zuer lightly bit her lower lip, and after a brief moment of internal struggle, she finally shut her eyes. Her small snow jade hand, which shone with the light radiated by her phoenix flames, gently fell. B-O-O-O-O. The fiery image of the phoenix gave a long screech, and it seemed to rush out from the heart of a star as it left a billowing and all-encompassing sea of fire in its wake as it dove downwards. Space completely shattered everywhere the image of the phoenix passed. Yimexi gave a cold snort as he took to the skies, both of his hands directly grabbing at the fiery phoenix image. But during the instant that his hands stretched forward, the expression on his face abruptly changed. He crazily attempted to flee as his body started to convulse. But at that moment, it was already far too late, and he was instantly swallowed up by that fiery image. UWA-H-H-H? Yimexi's miserable and mournful howl rang through the entire Supreme Ocean Palace. The fiery phoenix image continued to descend as it carried along Yimexi, who had already completely turned into a human torch. It descended onto Supreme Ocean Palace amidst a chorus of panicked and terrified cries which rang out at the same time. The sea of flames ruptured, towering flames soaring into the heavens as they completely swallowed up all of the people from Sun Moon Divine Hall and Mighty Heavenly Sword region who had rushed forward. Fathomless Ocean Abyss, the location where Yun Qi and Xuanyuan Wenchen were currently dueling. "Have you finally resigned yourself to your fate?" Xuanyuan Wenchen said as he gave a deep and low chuckle. "To be able to endure for so long when facing this sovereign's devil-god power, you indeed do have the qualifications to be praised by this sovereign." "Resign myself to fate? Heh, heh, heh." Yun Qi was laughing. When he stopped fleeing and took the initiative to face down Xuanyuan Wenchen, he had started laughing non-stop. "I have never ever known what resigning myself to fate means." "Xuanyuan Wenchen," Yun Qi said with a low laugh, "don't you find that there is something strange with the wounds on my body?" "This sovereign does indeed feel there is something strange going on," Xuanyuan Wenchen said in a nonchalant manner. "You have been slashed by this sovereign so many times, and if it was any other person, he would have already died 10,000 times. But despite all of your wounds, your aura has not weakened in the slightest. So it looks like your body is far superior to your profound strength, and it just might be that it is actually comparable to this sovereign's devil body. This sovereign is now extremely interested in the secrets hidden within your body, so before I obtain those secrets, I can hardly bear even the thought of destroying it." "No, no, no." Yun Qi's smile grew even more strange. He raised his own arm as he spoke in a leisurely manner. "Have you not realized that all of the wounds in my body are merely wounds created by your swords? Your so-called devil-god power has not even left a single mark on my body." Xuanyuan Wenchen's eyes narrowed into slits, the black light within faintly trembling. Fire-profound energy would create burn wounds. Ice-profound energy would cause cold-related injuries. Darkness-profound energy was even more terrifying than either of the other two. The moment someone was wounded by darkness-profound energy, their very flesh and blood would be devoured. If one got off lightly, the wound would turn black. If it was a serious injury, that person's flesh, blood, and even bones would turn into black water. When Yun Qi had fought that vicious battle with the Moon Slaughter Devil Sovereign inside the Moon Slaughter Devil nest, his entire body had been so ravaged by the darkness-profound energy that it was too horrible to even look at. Even though the current Yun Qi had many small and large wounds on his body, these were all either light or heavy sword wounds. There was no trace of decay or rot on these wounds, and the blood that leaked from them was dark red. Xuanyuan Wenchen's dark devil energy, and the darkness-profound energy which had filled each, and every sword stroke had seemed not to even touch Yun Qi's body. "What are you trying to tell this sovereign?" Xuanyuan Wenchen said as his voice grew deep and booming. "Heh, heh, heh." Yun Qi's laughter grew even weirder, and no matter whether it was his gaze or his expression, both were gradually becoming more unusual and strange. There was also a hint of something sinister in them. He slowly raised his eyes to Xuanyuan Wenchen, a pitch-black light flashing in his pupils. Xuanyuan Wenchen's gaze jumped. "MN, this is..." Whoosh. It was as if a long-slumbering devil had suddenly been roused within Yun Qi's body, as an incomparably thick and dense black energy abruptly erupted from Yun Qi. His hair stood completely on end before dancing wantonly amidst that black light. A dark and sinister oppressive might held Xianxia Wenshen's entire body in an incomparably icy grip. Wah! What? Xianxia Wenshen's pupils expanded to their widest. The darkness of the fathomless deep-sea abyss was unable to seal his sight. The black light that radiated from Yun Qi's body and his suddenly changed aura was clearly dark devil energy. Furthermore, it was incomparably pure and dense dark devil energy. Chapter 911, Vicious Battle in the Ocean Depths 2. Darkness Profound Energy? Xianxia Wenshen's expression completely changed. Why do you possess darkness profound energy? Why do you possess this sovereign's power? Your power! Yun Qi flashed a disdainful, cold smile. The richness of the dark aura on his body had seemingly surpassed Xianxia Wenshen's. To be blunt, I don't really like this power too much, nor do I want to be treated by others as a devil like you. But in this place, it no longer matters. The profound veins were the source of profound energy for regular people, while the devil origin orb was the source of profound energy for the ancient devil gods. As for Yun Qi, he had two sources of profound energy. One was the evil god's profound veins, while the other was the devil origin orb that originated from the moon's slaughter devil sovereign and had assimilated into his profound veins. Possessing the four evil gods' seeds of fire, water, lightning, and darkness, he could convert the energy in his profound veins into profound energy of the fire, water, lightning, or darkness attribute at will. However, the devil origin orb could only release dark profound energy. As it was a terrifying negative profound energy, the evil god back then did not allow anyone to know that he possessed this power, and Yun Qi similarly did not want to either. Thus, after ascertaining that he could not defeat Xianxia Wenshen, he lured Xianxia Wenshen deep into the ocean, and then finally released the power of the devil origin orb without the slightest hesitation. The energy released by the evil god's profound veins had all converted into darkness profound energy as well. Under the convergence of two masses of dark profound energy, Yun Qi instantly turned into a completely awakened devil god, as the aura on his body expanded at a peerlessly terrifying speed. Clang, HSSS, the eternal night devil sword in Xianxia Wenshen's hand suddenly trembled, letting out an obscure metallic sound. After which, an extremely terrible-sounding voice emitted out from the eternal night devil sword. This energy, where did you obtain it from? Impossible. This is impossible. Yun Qi did not find the restlessness of the eternal night divine sword the slightest bit unexpected, because the devil soul within the sword was the son of the moon slaughter devil sovereign. So naturally, he would be able to catch the scent of the moon slaughter devil sovereign from his dark profound aura. Raising the heaven-smiting devil slayer sword, the dark aura from his body speedily spread towards the blade of the sword as well, and mixed with the crimson-red vermilion sword glow that was originally there in the first place, forming an incomparably strange, dark crimson mist. There's no need for me to answer a dead person. Yun Qi's voice was shady, and his face displayed haughtiness that far surpassed his usual. Though I'm still not too comfortable with this power, it should be enough to kill you, Xianxia Wenshen. Ha 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 ha! Xianxia Wenshen laughed wildly. Though this sovereign doesn't know where your dark, profound energy came from, compared to the power of this sovereign who has stepped into the divine way, your dark, profound energy is but a lowly existence. Wanting to kill this sovereign is forever a foolish dream. This time, you no longer have anywhere to run to. Die. The eternal night devil's sword penetrated through the ocean water, smashing towards Yun Qi's head. What seemed like a simple and plain sword strike actually carried a might as if a devil god was making its descent. Yun Qi stepped forward with his right foot. The dark aura around his body intensely surged. The energy coming from his profound veins and the devil origin orb gathered on his two arms as he smashed his sword towards Xianxia Wenshen. Yun Qi, who had previously evaded Xianxia Wenshen with all his might, had actually chosen to clash head-on this time. You're courting death! Seeing that Yun Qi was actually not dodging and was facing him head-on, Xianxia Wenshen released a ridiculing loud roar. The energy he poured into the eternal night devil sword once again intensified, as if he was planning to shatter all of Yun Qi's bones with a single sword strike. The two swords clashed. Even in the ocean depths, a loud, piercing reverberation was still emitted out. The 10-millennium-old bedrock beneath their feet instantly disintegrated. Wanting to expel the ocean water 30 kilometers under the ocean was incomparably difficult, because every drop of ocean water carried a heavy pressure from 30 kilometers of depth. However, the moment their two swords clashed, The 300 meters of space surrounding Xianxia and Xianxia Wenchen instantly turned into an incomparably terrifying vacuum zone, and this vacuum zone was even maintained for a long while. Within it was filled with a terrifying energy that was enough to destroy mountains as tall as 30 kilometers. Their eyes met through the lock between the eternal Night Devil Sword and Heaven-Smiting Devil Slayer Sword. Xianxia Wenchen's face was intensely distorted. His eyes were filled with deep astonishment. While Xianxia's gaze was mild, the corners of his lips curved into a light, arrogant smile. Xianxia Wenchen's voice was slightly trembling. Fine strips of blood erupted within his eyes, because Xianxia was actually able to hold up against his eternal Night Devil Sword. He held up against his eternal Night Devil Sword head-on, and without any fancy tricks. When the eternal Night Devil Sword was in hand, what the devil blood and devil soul released was power of the divine profound realm. It was the one and only absolute power in the history of the profound sky continent that was enough to view all the profound practitioners of the profound sky continent as ants. It was actually blocked by Xianxia. Xianxia loudly roared, as flames ignited within the dark light surrounding his body. The heaven-smiting Devil Slayer sword fiercely pushed forward, and with a loud boom, a second wave of energy erupted from the heaven-smiting Devil Slayer sword. The two of them were instantly sent flying far away. Whoosh! The ocean water that was expelled quickly poured back in, however. The surrounding dozens of kilometers of the deep ocean were in unrest for a long while. Xianxia Wenchen, who was blown away, felt a numbing sensation in his arms. He looked at his own hands in utter disbelief, and with even more disbelieving eyes, he looked towards Xianxia, who was immersed in black light on the opposite side when his power was suppressed by Xianxia before he wielded the eternal Night Devil Sword. It had merely astonished him. However, with the Devil Sword now in hand, and his body now circulating with power of the divine way, how could his attack possibly be fended off by a mere mortal at the sovereign profound realm? Impossible. Earlier you must have used some sort of trick. Xianxia Wenchen roared out in agitation, and as if it had exploded, the black aura surrounding his body wildly surged. Then he once again pounced towards Xianxia. This sovereign wants to see how you're going to take on this blow. Boom, boom, boom. Before the eternal Night Devil Sword had even made contact, the surrounding ocean water was already in chaos, as if it was boiling water. The terrifying water pressure did not seem to exist when it came to the two of them, for a distance of 300 meters in the ocean was instantly closed. The eternal Night Devil Sword and Heaven-Smiting Devil Slayer Sword once again clashed ruthlessly against each other. The clashing sound this time was extremely sullen, and the ocean began to shake incomparably violently. Intense ripples wildly shot out towards the surrounding ocean water, all the way towards the ocean surface 30 kilometers above. However, they did not stop there and had even shot through the waters, carrying waves of 30 kilometers in length. Even though the surrounding world had sunk into a crisis that had never occurred before, even in ancient times, at the center of the crisis, the eternal Night Devil Sword and Heaven-Smiting Devil Slayer Sword were as if they were glued to each other. Xianxia Wenchen was not blown away, and similarly, Xianxia was not blown away either. This sword strike, a sword strike which Xianxia Wenchen did not leave even the slightest of reserves behind due to his frenzy, was still completely received by Xianxia head-on. Gua! Xianxia Wenchen's eyes were astonished to the verge of exploding apart. To Xianxia Wenchen, this was definitely not as simple as receiving his full-powered blow, but the power of the divine way he had chased after for an entire lifetime, no. It was the faith he had finally managed to obtain after experiencing countless pains, and pursuing it for an entire lifetime that was seemingly about to collapse. It seems like this is your full power. Xianxia's eyes half narrowed, and he sullenly sneered. You schemed for 1,000 years, killed so many people, and have even forsaken your own flesh and blood to obtain your present power, while I have only used less than 8 years. Xianxia's words were a simple declaration of a truth, without even the slightest of offensive remarks. However, when they resounded in Xianxia Wenchen's ears, it was as if he had heard the most heartless and disdainful and most malicious curse in the world. Ah! Xianxia Wenchen loudly roared as if he was venting out, to the point where his throat had instantly turned hoarse. Xianxia, no one in this world is worthy of looking down on this sovereign. How can this sovereign's strength possibly be compared to by a little bastard like you who has yet to grow out a single hair? You have but received 2 of this sovereign's blows. Let me see just how many of this sovereign's blows can you receive. This time, Xianxia Wenshin's degree of irritation had far surpassed any single moment previously. He was like a dark, ferocious beast which had been completely enraged as he charged towards Xianxia with a hoarse, wild roar. The Eternal Night Devil Sword smashed down with all of his might and fury. Clang! Boom! Sha, the Eternal Night Devil Sword, clashed intensely with the Heaven-Smiting Devil Slayer Sword. Within the ocean depths, it was as if an ancient divine bell was vibrating from being struck, as their positions in the ocean depths constantly changed. As they moved horizontally, the ocean water was either overbearingly expelled or annihilated into nothingness. The bedrock beneath their feet had even caved, shattered, and disappeared layer by layer. Incomparably rich black light wound about their bodies, and within the ocean depths, where the sun and moon could never be seen, it was as if two 10,000-year-old ferocious beasts tearing each other apart had suddenly appeared. Boom! The blue ocean exploded, and the two of them were sent flying back several hundreds of meters away at the same time. Xianxia Wenshin's head heavily struck onto the bedrock, and several meters of it instantly shattered apart. The Eternal Night Devil Sword had also plowed out a gully of several dozen meters in length in the ocean floor. This time, Xianxia Wenshin did not immediately charge towards Xianxia again. The hand he was grasping the Eternal Night Devil Sword with was trembling, because after several hundred clashes, his two arms had seemingly been completely numbed. The gaps between his fingers were all drenched in black blood, yet he did not seem to feel the slightest bit of pain. Compared to his numbed arms, what was even more terrifying was the energy that was surging in his entire body, which was close to bursting out of his body. Every single sword strike Xianxia Wenshin threw out was imbued with the power of the divine way, while Xianxia's Heaven-Smiting Devil Slayer sword was already 1,000,000 kilograms in weight alone. In every single clash of the two swords, the might they carried was as if a meteorite had fallen, and the immense rebounds had all gone to their bodies. Even with Xianxia Wenshin's prided devil physique, he still found it hard to endure after several hundred intense clashes. He could feel that his own organs were about to be torn, and the bones in his entire body were at the verge of falling apart. However, at this moment, Xianxia let out an explosive roar. The Heaven-Smiting Devil Slayer sword, shrouded with a dark aura, smashed towards him, carrying a terrifying might that did not seem to have weakened. The two of them had been enduring the exact same rebounds the entire time, and he was beginning to feel that his devil physique could not last much longer. Xianxia, however, actually looked completely unharmed and had instead grown even fiercer. "You!" This time, other than the astonishment in Xianxia Wenshin's eyes, there was finally a hint of fear within them. He fiercely gnashed his teeth as he raised the Eternal Night Devil Sword horizontally to forcefully block it. Boom! That short breather earlier had weakened Xianxia Wenshin's momentum, and the energy of this one sword strike was far weaker than the previous ones. With a booming noise, the blood vessels in his arms erupted, and blood scattered into the water. As he screamed out, his body, which was leaning against the bedrock, was sent flying away. Xianxia had merely stepped backward for a moment and had then suddenly caught up to Xianxia Wenshin when he smashed down his sword. Unforgivable! Lightless, eternal night! Xianxia Wenshin's pupils intensely shrank, and then they intensely widened with fear. He stopped his body and fiercely puked out a large mouthful of black blood as a black light, that was even denser in black aura, by several times suddenly exploded. It instantly swallowed the surrounding space of several tens of meters, completely engulfing Xianxia within. This was the dark domain that originated from the illusory tome of eternal night, and it was also the most extreme dark power which Xianxia Wenshin could release. The dark energy that had reached the stage of the divine way was sufficient enough to engulf everything within the domain into endless darkness and emptiness. Facing this peerlessly terrifying dark domain, there was not the slightest of bit of anxiety and heaviness on Xianxia's face. Rather, he flashed a light, disdainful smile. Then he completely ignored the extreme darkness that was engulfing towards him and had suddenly moved forward, with a speed that was even slightly faster than before. Under Xianxia Wenshin's utterly disbelieving eyes, a sword stabbed into his chest, and the tip of the sword penetrated out of his back. Uwahhhh! Xianxia Wenshin's body stiffened. His eyes widened as he let out a painful and hoarse scream. The lightless eternal night domain that was just established earlier quickly dispersed like a punctured soap bubble. In front of him, Xianxia was grasping onto the enormous vermilion sword that had stabbed into his body with a heart-palpitating, ghastly smile. Bang! Xianxia Wenchen suddenly smashed his palm onto Yun Qi's chest, pushing Yun Qi and the heaven-smiting devil slayer soared far into the distance. Xianxia Wenchen held onto his chest, where a hole had been punched all the way through, and stepped back in a staggering manner. The pain running through his entire body felt as though he had fallen into hell itself. Cough, 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 ha ha ha, Xianxia Wenchen, isn't it really refreshing? Yun Qi consecutively puked out several mouthfuls of bad blood. He looked at Xianxia Wenchen's miserable state and laughed out loud in a willful manner. This sovereign shall kill you. Kill you? All of Xianxia Wenchen's viciousness was completely stimulated as he released the hand that was pressing on his chest. Allowing the black blood to rapidly flow, his hands grasped onto the eternal night devil sword as he crazily smashed it towards Yun Qi. Boom, boom! A crack several dozens of kilometers in length tore through the ocean depths, and under this sword strike, Yun Qi was ruthlessly smashed flying, smashing through 7 or 8 boulders in the ocean. However, he instantly leapt back up the moment he landed on the ground, and like a ferocious beast which did not know of pain or fear, he made a counterattack against Xianxia Wenchen. The two of them swept up terrifying dark tornadoes that continuously grew in intensity, and their blood swirled within the tornadoes, suffusing and raging within the ocean region.